Very good morning, ma'am. Namaste. Welcome to the second day of FDP program. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself. Yes, ma'am. It's okay. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the day 2 of the session 1. Yesterday, we had 3 insightful sessions by Dr. Saroj Mahapatra, who spoke about the various facets of leadership while exerting influence, not power. We had with us Dr. Gaurav Das, who took us through the resilience in the healthcare sector. And the last session was taken by Dr. Svetlana Vidyadhar, who took us detail in terms of how to generate a hybrid classroom, thereby looking into the necessities of Gen Next. Today's session, we have with us Dr. Debjani Roy, a very efficient industry stalwart and a domain expert in the field of human resource with over 25 years of hardcore functional experience across companies such as Maharatna Nalco, Bharti, HCL Technology, Bentley System, Kuoni, SRL, Diagnostic, Fortis Group, and more. Till 2019, her last full-time assignment was with SRL Diagnostic as CHRO, where she was also the HR strategic partner at the board. With a degree in organizational behavior from FMS University, over her career span, she has earned an established reputation of being one of the most progressive HR business leaders, having provided transformative people leadership across industries. She has been awarded many a time amongst the business and the HR fraternities as one of the country's most dynamic HR managers. And Dr. Debjani has lately branched out on her own and chosen the advisory and the mentor role for herself in order to go forward. Currently, she is the Chief HR Advisor to Mind Your Fleet, a reputed software startup in the transportation space. Dr. Debjani runs her own HR solution and advisory firm called as Wind Beneath the Wings Venture LLP. Dr. Debjani is also a visiting professor to a number of reputed B schools, besides being on the jury of a large number of schools and colleges for their incubation labs. Dr. Debjani, apart from her career sites, the TEDx is also a sought-after speaker at various forums, an author, an education activist, as well as a coach and mentor to a large number of faculties and students in the current academic space. Social mentoring is her current passion, both in corporate and academic domains, with a special focus on women. So today, she will be taking us through the transformational leadership, which is the other side of disruption. So I thank her to be with us and accepting our invitation to be a part of this 5-day FDP program. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being over here. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shikta, and all August members of KIIT University, and of course all my faculty member friends and participants of this particular webinar. It gives me immense pleasure to be a part of this FDP. There's no better pursuit in life than learning, and learning from each other is a pursuit I strongly believe in. Thank you, Shikta. You were very kind with my introduction. So many accolades. I hope I live up to those words that you've spoken. However, thank you also for giving me the opportunity to speak on a topic, which is very much after my heart. And especially so because when we talk about transformational leadership, which is what my topic is going to be today, and I'll be discussing more about the styles as well as the impact that transformational leadership leaves on people, on organizations, as well as on countries. I take immense pride in being a member or a citizen of a country first, where we have had the good fortune of actually seeing in person. Maybe we were not born in those ages, but we did have a real life transformational leadership that this country experienced in the form of Mahatma Gandhi. Because as we go along, we will realize that transformational leadership is not easy, it is not commonplace, it is not something which happens by default. It happens by design. It is a great skill as well as an art. And it is something which obviously can be acquired by learning the do's and don'ts. But people who demonstrate transformational leadership from birth are those who are born with certain innate qualities, which creates an aura around them, a charisma around them. And that is what makes this particular kind of leadership that much more fascinating. So I hope in this 1.5 hours of session that we will be talking about, I would obviously have a discourse on what this particular type of leadership is all about. What is probably the most common model that we talk about? I won't make it too much of a class book, a class textbook kind of a discourse, but will concentrate much more on the style elements, the characteristics, because those are really the takeaways that we need to understand in order to be able to also practice some of the parts of transformational leadership ourselves. So thank you again. It's really, really a pleasure to be amongst all of you today. And I hope to keep this discourse interactive. In the course of my presentation, I have a presentation which I shall run through most parts of the 1.5 hours. It's for about 10 minutes, and then we will have an opportunity to possibly discuss, clarify. If you have any queries, I'll be very happy to take them on, and we can take the discussion forward, thereafter. So without much ado, I would like to now move on to the presentation that I would like to bring to you. Just give me a minute so that I can start the sharing part of it. Just want to know from all of you, is this visible on your screens?
It's visible, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So as I said, the topic for today is transformational leadership, styles and impact on disruptive times. We will talk about transformational leadership in great detail, but I thought it'll be interesting for me to also bring it to the current times and make it that much more relevant. Because if we talk about disruptive times, we are actually undergoing such disruptive times today. And that's the reason why it becomes very, very important for us not only to understand the kind of leadership that we are talking about, but also how relevant is it even today, when we are in an age of new normal, when we are in an age where we are looking at different work styles, we are looking at different kinds of work pattern management. And in all of that, does transformational leadership has a place to stay? So that's the reason why I have drawn it to the current times of disruption. To start with, I would like to obviously look at the definition of what do we mean by transformational leadership. Transformational leadership is a leadership style in which leaders encourage, inspire, and motivate employees. This is perhaps the most important thing to keep in mind, that transformational leadership are people who do not believe in a linear dictatorial style of leadership. They are not people who believe in instructional management. They are not people who believe in giving instructions one sided. Rather, they believe in the old adage of participative management. They believe in leading by example, by taking people along, by inspiring them, encouraging them, by also leading by example. Now that's important because leaders lead by example. We've heard about this, adage for a very long time. But this is probably the only style, the major style of leadership in which it is more true than anywhere else. That if you need to be counted as a transformational leader, you need to lead by example. There is nothing that you should preach that you cannot practice yourself, because it is by visual demonstration, it is through making it very imperative to the followers that you have. It is setting examples in front of your people, and especially those who work in your organization, that you motivate, you encourage, and inspire them along in the journey of organization building. Transformational leadership is also a style in which the leaders innovate and create change that helps grow and shape the future success of the company. So, in short, this is the kind of leadership which not only focuses on participative management, taking people along, but they are completely future vision oriented. They not only look at preserving and nurturing what is already there as part of the goods and services, but they also believe in helping organizations grow and shape the future as they go along. The above is accomplished by setting an example at the executive level. As I already explained, this is probably that one particular style of leadership in which you will always find that the leaders have to probably be more participative, more agile, more involved, more intuitive than even every member of the organization, because people will continuously be looking at them. They are public figures more than anywhere else. They are figures who bring energy to the table. They are figures who bring examples to the table. They lead by demonstration themselves. I'm sure all of you have heard about another very, very inspiring adage: walk the talk. What is this walk the talk? Walking the talk means nothing but leading by example. If I say that I would like my managers to be inspirational, or I would like my managers to be delegational, that they should know how to delegate work properly amongst their teams, I should also be one who knows how to delegate and how to take that entire phenomena forward. So nothing that I should be talking about is something which I cannot do. Therefore, transformational leadership is a style which sets an example at the executive level through a very strong sense of corporate culture, employee ownership, and independence in the workplace. Now, each of these words, or each of these spatial adages that I have put here, has a very strong relevance. Leaders are leaders, but leaders are very different from each other, as you must have experienced in your lifetime, or have read about them, or have observed them in different situations. Leadership can be of multiple kinds. There are transactional leaders. Transactional leaders stick to only achieving what is there by process and believes in rewarding only up to that level. They don't go beyond their set barometers. They don't go beyond their set boundaries. And they remain very much sometimes a victim of their own mental length and breadth, rather than own up and grow into accommodating the corporate culture the way a transformational leader would. A transformation leader, on the other side, as we already read, does not have any preconceived boundaries or borders that he or she sets for themselves. They basically look at what vision does the organization have to follow? Where does the organization have to reach? What kind of a culture does this organization need to talk about? How do people have to scale up, both in terms of their thought leadership as well as their execution prowess, so as to be able to take the organization in the chosen path to that objective that has been defined for it? And in order to do that, these leaders, the transformational leaders, believe in bestowing independence to the people to be able to take the right decisions. So, in short, transformational leadership belongs to people, belongs to leaders who lead by example. They believe in motivation, they believe in inspiration, they believe in encouragement for taking their people along. They are far sighted. They not only look at the current, the present, but they also look at the future and how to take the growth of the company forward. And last but not the least, they are people who are imbued with the corporate culture. They belong in participative management. And finally, in making sure that there is an empowered environment in which every employee is able to breathe and perform. Therefore, transformational leaders inspire and motivate workforce without micromanaging. I think these are very important terms that we need to know about. You must have seen leaders who always are instruction based, who are standing behind you even when you're trying to do a good day's job, who are continuously, as we say, breathing down your neck, who are not able to actually have the trust in you that you will be able to continue to do the job as well if he was not there to guide you at every level. For such transactional leaders, their being present at the workplace with you 24 by 7 makes a lot of difference, because according to them, they are the ones who make things happen. Quite the reverse. Transformational leaders do not believe in that micromanagement. They believe, as we already said earlier when we looked at the definition, they believe in making sure that you belong to an empowered environment. They believe in giving you the liberty to think for yourself. They believe in giving you the breadth and length of your ability to take your thoughts and convert them into actionable strategy. And that is what makes it very innovative and exciting to be a part of such an environment, because you have eclectic thought processes that are working continuously at the back of every transaction that takes place. Transformational leaders, look at the second point, trust trained employees to take authority over decisions in their assigned jobs. So, as we just now said, transactional leaders find it difficult to trust their subordinates. But transformational leaders, they get maximum energy and power for themselves by trusting their leaders, by trusting their people, by trusting their teams in delivering what has already been bestowed to them. Transformational leaders also give more room to be creative, looks to the future, and find new solutions to old problems. So when we talk about empowerment, when we talk about freshness, when we talk about thoughts coming in from different sources, obviously it creates a very, very open environment where there is a healthy exchange of different ideas coming in from different quarters. And therefore, there are new solutions which can always be looked upon as something that would happen as an organic process out of that style of leadership. Transformational leaders also mentors and trains next batch of similar kind of leaders. It is difficult for a transformational leader, somebody who is a people's person, who is by far the person who motivates people to come along with him in his journey of organization building. It is difficult to find people of that rarity where just by their skill of communication or oratory, they are able to rouse the in energies of large number of people to actually come and become a part of the movement. So these are the people who are influential. These are the people who actually have the command of the language. These are also transformational leaders, are people who not only have command of the language, but also command of the process. Because till the extent they know the process well, it'll be difficult for them to A, explain it forward to people who need to carry it forward, and also, sometimes it is just not sufficient at that point of time. Therefore, transformational leaders are also very dynamic. They know exactly when to put their foot on the accelerator and give that extra momentum so that people can leap and take the entire process that many months forward. Or they can actually, the leaders can actually decide or choose that there's really been enough bloodshed, there's been enough enough dynamics in the system. There have been enough naysaying. Now is the time for a little bit of peace, and therefore we are not going to be dealing with acerbic situations like the way we have earlier. So these are the kind of extremely good values that transformational leaders bring for themselves to the table. I would also like to just request here that in the course of my discussion or my presenting, um, I hope my speed is okay with everyone. I wanted to check on that. I hope the speed is fine and everybody is able to comprehend correctly.
Yes, ma'am, they have mentioned in the chat box.
Yeah, ma'am, it is okay.
Absolutely okay, ma'am. Absolutely okay. Super.
Ma'am, could you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, is it
Okay,
fine?
ma'am.
I am audible?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, madam. Yes.
So just now, as I kept on referring, I kept on going back and forth talking about transactional leaders and transformational leaders. Let's have a quick look at this chart that I have for you, which gives you a snapshot of exactly what I've been trying to explain to you earlier, which is what really is transactional and what is transformational. How do we see the differences and where do we draw the line between the two? Now, there are multiple differences. If we keep on charting them down, there'll be an exhaustive list which will go much beyond what is mentioned here. But I thought I would pick up the most relevant of the points and bring it to you. Transactional is exactly the opposite of transformational, which is suited to departments or organizations that require routine and structures, areas where businesses want to reduce chaos or inefficiency. Okay? Transactional believes in motivating employees by rewards and punishment. Please see this. There are boundaries, there are barometers. We already have defined punishments, we already have set rewards. On the other hand, transformational leaders allows for innovation as well as for future planning. Now, if the entire environment of the organization is set for innovation and is set for future planning by people themselves, it becomes a part of the process. It becomes a part of the organic progression of the organization. And therefore, the question of reward becomes very, very minuscule over there, because you only reward when you give something to be worked upon as a task. So when a leader, a transactional leader, talks to one of the team members, he talks as if he's assigning a task, and therefore when the task is completed as per his satisfaction, there is either a reward or there is a punishment for non-completion. However, in case of a transformational leader, it is not something which is a task. It is a continuous process that happens with every member of the team who talks, who looks at where are the areas for innovation, who looks at how can I find out ways in which to take the progress of the company forward. So that becomes an organic development for the organization itself, and thereby you cannot really fit, okay, situational, you cannot fit standard situational uh, rewards and punishments in order to be able to recommend or nurture that kind of a empowered environment. Transformational leaders also hugely support agile environments where failure carries less risk. So imagine when we talk about there's something called risk taking ability, and that's something which we will learn a little more about as we go forward into the presentation. Hugely supports agile environments, and this is where today's disruption comes into play. What is this disruption that we find ourselves surrounded with? Possibly something that we even 5 years back were only discussing as a boardroom discussion or at different seminars and conferences. And that was all about how the digital world was going to really sweep us off our feet, how the digitization of different processes was going to be the next generation order for us to work in, how the digital revolution was going to look at technology in a manner which had not been done earlier. If you all remember, these used to be the oft quoted topics or headlines of all the talks that were being given in different communities and seminars and conferences, etc. However, Look at where we are today, thanks to the pandemic, as well as thanks to the technology revolution that has been taking place slowly and steadily in the background. Digitization is all over us. We don't no longer have the luxury today to hypothecate and sit and wait for the next digitization to come and hit us. We are already in the midst of it. And basically, because of the fact that we find ourselves in the midst of such a huge shift, such a dynamic shift in the way we have looked at work till now, there is a lot of coping and carrying on that we have to do. There's a lot of coping that we have to do at the individual level, because many of us find ourselves underprepared, very much so. And there should be no embarrassment in owning their up, because who knew that this was going to come like this in such a short period of time? So if you have the doubt in your mind of being underprepared to meet what is there out in the open, please don't be. Exercise your thought leadership, exercise your thoughts. Slowly and steadily, a cognitive ability will come into your thinking pattern. Okay? Transactional leaders, through supervision, oversight, organization, and performance monitoring. So, if you look at the kind of qualities that a transactional leader believes in, it is all watertight. It is all stated within boundaries. Supervision, you immediately get the do's and don'ts picture. Oversight is something which need not be discussed anymore and can just be, disregarded. Whereas actually, a good discussion around such a problem when it happens helps you to find the solutions that much more faster. Helps us to also gain an insight into what could be an alternate strategy if such a situation were to hit any one of us tomorrow. This kind of leadership, which is transactional leadership, does not encourage innovation, period. There is no discussion, no debate on this. This is the kind of leader who's gregarious, who's happy go lucky, who makes friends very easily, but she makes and she chooses to have friends whom she is very close to. And this choice is not left to anybody else but those leaders only to believe in. Quite the converse. Transformational leaders, however, choose different kind of people. They choose people who are not good at following instructions. They choose people as their favorites who are hugely empowered, hugely independent, who are able to give vision to their thoughts and are able to take any kind of decisions as and when that kind of responsibility is bestowed upon them. Transformational leaders also leave people free to come up with ideas, and they also look at future of products, services, and ideas. So as I said, transformational leaders are forward thinking, they are forward moving, they are continuously talking about how to enhance the growth of the company, how to take the growth or the profit margins to the next level. That's basically what keeps them awake at night. But having said that, do they let go of everything that they already have? Or do they have also a process in place which is equally consolidating and taking care of everything that they have managed to earn for themselves till now? I think you'll find the answer in the latter, that they have not only become organic in a very, very sound and mature manner, they also know exactly what are the metrics that need to be put in place in order to lead a healthy, a productive community life. So if somebody has sought out and found out that formula for himself or herself, then half the battle is already won. So these, my friends, are basically the subtle differences between what is a kind of a transactional leadership, as which is most common, which incidentally is most common in the organization parlance, and you come across transactional leaders mostly, okay, from amongst the crop of CXOs and CEOs that we have, okay, whereas people like the kind of empowerment, and people like the kind of tiness, people like the kind of different variations and customizations, and that, however, belongs to gentleman called the transformational leader. Now, this particular leader, as I told you, needs necessarily to lead by example. Okay, so once we have understood this basic difference between the two, I would now like to move on to understanding the transformational leadership model, which looks like this. The words are very, very big. They seem jargonized, but you'll realize that when I break them down and when I start explaining about them, they're actually pretty easy. So basically the model, the transformational leadership model, which is by far, by Burson, is one of the most popular models that we have developed in this particular area. And as you can see, they basically are determined by the 4 I's. Now, what's an I? The first I is, is nothing but looking at idealized influence. Idealized influence is nothing but leading by example and setting the expectations. Now, right from the start of the session, I have been harping upon the fact that transformational leaders lead by example. If they keep talking and talking and talking, which is also something that a lot of good managers balance, even if they are forward thinking, or even if they are gregarious and empowered, they also believe in staying back, consolidating, nurturing that much more. So we have willy-nilly different kinds of characters today, and that gives us a breathing factor even in the stream time. Now, if we have to look at leading by example and setting expectations, that is our man, transformational leader. He not only leads by example, but he also encourages learning and growth. And that's where his intellectual stimulation comes into being. So the first one was idealized influence, which is basically the influential prowess of a transformational leader, that just by leading by example and setting the tempo of what needs to come, people used to get motivated to follow him. One of the examples that I talked about, though not corporate, okay, but then I spoke about one of those largest and biggest and most profound examples of transformational leadership that our country has actually experienced, none other than Mahatma Gandhi. And look at the personal charisma of the person. By no means did he play a solitary role in the Indian independence struggle. By no means was he a pushover. He was a timid, small man. But behind that little frail, that small frail, that thin body, the minimalistic attitude that he demonstrated, Mahatma Gandhi was a powerhouse. I don't think there can be any better example, okay, to define how much power and how much actual efficiencies are required to be a Mahatma Gandhi at that level. His one, his call to people, his one call to people on the Satyagraha, on the salt movement, each one of them, it would just be a call and people would rise to the occasion. And we will see how this can happen. So the third I was coaching and empowering to success, which is individualized consideration. So this is a very important part of obviously leading people along. When you identify yourself so much with the people, then people obviously also come vacillating to you, primarily because they know that if they do so, there will always be an opportunity for them to learn and be coached by you. Because you are somebody who's a people's person. You're not someone who's able to shift out the human individual in this entire paradigm so easily. So even if you have a very small, minimalistic appearance and an environment around you, doesn't mean that you are not cluttered in thought. I hope I'm making myself clear here. So intellectual stimulation, idealized influence, individualized considerations, all dovetailed in order to energize, okay, the people and the followers in the organization. And last but not the least, inspirational motivation. And as this is beautifully put, it is nothing but to inspire, to be away from the mainstream, and also try and become a part of the peripheral. That's what New Heights is all about. Because if you consider all the heights to be present only in the centrum, That's not always true. We also necessarily have to go and visit campuses. We necessarily need to talk to our people. We necessarily need to set examples to our people, primarily because there needs to be a continuous spiral of storytelling, continuous spiral of sessions where we are able to look at luminaries and different personalities in the past who have set extremely good examples for ourselves. And based on those experiences, this particular model obviously was given rise to. It basically, as I just said, ran on four main parameters: influencing, idealized influence, for intellectual, not for two, intellectual stimulation, number three, individualized consideration, and last but not the least, inspirational motivation. Now let's look at this model in a little more detail. Let's look at what is idealized influence. Transformational leaders who show idealized influence are those who are role models to their followers. So here we are talking about influence, which is so powerful that it is almost worshipped the same way that your guru is worshipped. Second important one. And this says that transformation leaders are those demonstrating idealized influence who are engaged in high standards of ethical behavior. They also come across providing followers with a sense of vision and mission, has already started feeling that he comes across as extremely trustworthy, and last but not the least, transformational leaders, especially those who believe in demonstrating idealized influence, are those who are seen as doing the right thing. So here is a person who, under this entire paradigm of idealized influence, stands as an example before his people. That's what this entire paragraph talks about. So nothing, influence doesn't have to be 3,000 feet. Influence doesn't have to be 27,000 tons of salt. It does not have to be any of those. It can be simple processes, simple structures, but taken in the right way, in the right manner. So
So,
if
ma'am, just excuse me, in terms of the model which you explained right now, with the flow of the transformational leadership, and I hope our participants belonging to a fraternity of professor and corporate leader, they might be also doing that. So for to have a better insight, I am launching a poll. So I would request all our participants to answer that. And as an instructor or a corporate leader, how frequently you work on transforming yourself? So I have launched a poll, ma'am. Let us take a response.
excellent, I think very timely and very nicely worded poll.
So with that will actually give us to
An indicator,
the,
yes,
yes.
very much so. Thank
Uh,
you.
Excuse me, Sikta ma'am. Actually, you gave me a little bit liberty to. Can I ask question to Roy ma'am?
Yeah, sure, sir. In the
Uh,
meantime, the polling happens. The rest of the
huh.
participants are polling with me.
Good morning, Debjani ma'am.
Good morning. Good morning.
This is Deepak Mitra this side from Bihar.
Hello, Mr. Mitra. Tell me.
Ma'am, as you were explaining the differences between the transactional and the transformational leadership,
Hmm.
what I have experienced in my real life for the past many years, we hardly find any transformational leadership in a government educational higher education institution.
Yes.
All are transactionals. First of all, are they are not at all transactionals also. They are all self motive, selfish model case of you can say leaders. In
Hmm.
that very context, when we are working under them, we have certain protocol. Either you become a courtier of them or just follow as the things are going, just let them go as it is going. So it
Hmm.
is mostly we find in all the government institutional the leaders, so called the in higher education, those actually taking care of the whole institution, And when interaction goes, hardly they are affected by making some kind of or either they are promoting innovations or promoting any kind of change or giving an independent duty to lead, make modifications in the peripheral in which uh, the faculties are working, so that new things can come around. It's the same stereotype list of protocols that is followed in most of the government institution of higher education. But this is my personal experience. Maybe it may be incorrect, but that's my personal experience.
Should I
How
address should I address
how
you
do
as Professor Mitra
uh,
or Dr. Mitra? How should I address you?
ma'am, actually, being myself not being the leader at that place, how do I take care of that? Thank you, ma'am. That's my question.
No, I think it's a wonderful perspective you brought to us, and I do agree to a great extent of what you just now spoke about, and that is the misfortune of a country as diverse and as vast as India, where most of the intellectual capital and most of the brilliance and most of people who believe in doing some transformational work think that they need to be in the metro cities, they need to be in the top 20 cities where things are happening, and they do not think it worthwhile to actually venture out into the suburbs, into the hinterlands, into the grassroots level, where actually a lot of transformational stuff can be given birth to. When I say this with a great amount of passion because, as probably you heard from Shikta, I have spent 25 plus years in corporate, and then I chose to move out and be an education activist, primarily for the reason exactly what you said. I associated myself with two government organizations in the state of Haryana. And I went in and started actually mingling with a lot of the professors as well as the teaching faculties and students of government institutes, the graduate schools and the postgraduate schools, and I went inside the hinterland to find out how they were actually coming across. And woe behold, I mean, I completely can empathize with what you said. There were a set of people who did not want to do more than what they thought they had done. It was, we have done it, we have seen it, there's no need to do anything further. There was structured curriculum which had been archaic, which had been so archaic that it had outlived the utility of time, and yet they did not want to move beyond that. There was hardly any initiation, there was hardly any self intuition, there was hardly any motivation to do anything better. And unfortunately, a certain amount of blame could also be shared with the government mechanism, with the government machinery, because they also had become so lackadaisical in understanding how much the education sector had moved beyond. And we were now talking about smart classes and all of that, but we had fallen behind in our thought processes, in even our ability to metamorphosize ourselves, because nobody wanted to take that that pain. Nobody wanted to move beyond the treaded line, because it would be more effort. It would obviously result in people pushing the envelope. It would mean risk taking. It would mean taking upon yourself more work than probably what you wanted to do. So, as a result, yes, unfortunately, many of our systems fall completely by the side of the road, suffer from the lacuna of not evolving beyond a dotted line, primarily because we are responsible. We ourselves don't want to move the post. We don't want to shake the post and take it to the next level. And this needs to be addressed as fast as possible. It is something like the doctors, did not want to go and start. None of the good doctors, after they passed out from their colleges, wanted to go to the subaltern regions. They didn't want to go to the villages. They didn't want to go to the mofassils, because they thought that whatever money they had paid behind their own education, they could obviously reap it back if they only practiced in the mainstreams, in the main cities. And that's not what the Hippocrates Oath teaches you. So today, what do you have? You have a punitive measure coming in force by the government of India, where they have made it mandatory for doctors to go out and serve at least a minimum of 2 to 3 years in the hinterlands, in the villages, so that they understand the actual land from where the people come. We still are primarily an agrarian society. We still remain very much a society where there is a large proportion of people staying below the poverty line. And unless we, as the academic systems and the academia, are able to relate to that reality, how are we going to be evolved? How is the thought leadership going to evolve and make things change for the society? So I completely empathize with what you're saying, but empathizing will not get us too far. I think there is a lot of action orientation. There's a lot of citizen activism that has to come into being. Unless we put our souls together, unless we put our energies together behind making those changes come alive, we will keep discussing, and probably, our next generations are going to suffer because of the same. I hope I was able to address your concern.
Yes, ma'am, to a great extent, ma'am. But the machinery that the government provides and auditing, they have laid out a lot many kind of rules and regulation. For example, the AICTE or the NAC, you can say.
Hmm.
But all these are in shambles, no? They are manipulated and many things. What to say? You very well know the fact, what
Yes,
is
yes,
happening.
yes.
So it's very sad of the state that none of the leadership exists in the levels of the higher education. No leadership is there. So it just you can say stereotype things are just going on in the same way. Just we would write in our notice board we are NAC A accredited and this. I'm just specifically addressing the government institution. I'm not talking about the private ones.
Sure,
They are much
sure.
more efficient.
Sure, I
Thank you,
completely
ma'am.
understand. Thank you, thank you. Another just one point I'd like to touch upon without taking too much time out from the presentation itself is another area where probably a lot of change needs to be brought about is the industry academia collaborations, because whether it's the government level or whether it's the private level, there still seems to be a deep rooted mistrust between the two segments. The academia are quite wary if the corporate people walk into academic institutions because they feel that they might usurp their position, whereas the corporate people many a times, because of their experience, try and position themselves in a more superior manner, which is not correct vis-a-vis the academia who has their own place. And therefore we need to forge a much better union between the two, because only when these two energies come together, you would be able to push those archaic institutions that you're talking about. You'll be able to bring about better energy in making those rules which have been made, systems which have already been put in place but are becoming absolutely redundant. That will only happen when these two sections join hands together. That's something that I strongly believe in.
Even the syllabi don't change. The AICT approved institution, they don't change the syllabi also according to the industry. They are going stereotyped.
That is so
Yeah,
there is no,
I
but
understand. But
because
let's
every
move on.
semester, as we are, I will take up a case in our, and we change every year. Either it is semester wise or that we
I
completely
appreciate,
plan
ma'am,
with the
Sikta ma'am, I appreciate that, but that's
industry.
basically because your institution is a very, you can say, efficient institution, a private organization, and a very, you can say, academic-oriented leader you are having. But I'm addressing mostly the government institution
Mm,
where the professors are heavily paid, but then the result is zero.
mm. No, there is a pain which is coming through. I can very much empathize on that. But discussions, will only get us that much return. We will still have to, as I said, I strongly advocate citizen activism, because unless you and I pool our strengths together and decide to go beyond the obvious and are not able to be pushed back because of certain risks which will come our way, only then can we actually change the system. Just sitting and discussing will actually get us nowhere.
So I have released the poll, ma'am. So around 59%, they agree to a greater extent that they frequently keep on working in order to transform themselves. 39%, they are to some extent they do that, and 2% of them they don't believe at all in transformation.
Yeah, that 2% came as a little bit of a shock to me, but nevertheless, I would be very keen to understand that point of view too. But let's move on a little bit on this, the model that we were talking about, and thank you, Shikta ma'am, for running the poll. Very, very interesting. So after idealized influence, I think the other part that the second part that we would like to see of the model that we have been talking about is inspirational motivation. Now, transformational leaders who articulate an appealing vision that inspire and motivate others to perform beyond expectations demonstrate inspirational motivation. You see, every organization has the same set of working people. It's not, I mean, if we can take examples, it's not as if an IBM will have a different caliber of working people in India. I'm talking about the Indian context, vis-a-vis, let's say, a Google, vis-a-vis, let's say, a Tata, vis-a-vis, let's say, any of the public sectors, or even the small SMEs and MSMEs that we have. But from the same amount of team people that organizations land up with, how is it the the same kind of caliber, the same kind of skills that we inherit into the different organizations are, however, able to give better results and are able to set high standards from one organization to another? What happens to those people? Those people become inspired by these set of people called transformational leaders, these examples of organizations where they have been lucky enough to have been led from the front by this set of leaders are often able to demonstrate a level of performance and a level of growth which is far more. And this type of leadership, therefore, is called is completely inspirational with a lot of motivation angle to it. They have high standards and expectations from their followers. They trust. You see, this is a key word, trusting followers' ability implicitly, which means that when a leader chooses to give or delegate tasks to his different teams and team leaders, he shuts his eye and decides to take a back seat, allowing the empowerment of that team with the leader to deliver. He is there with a promise to support if required, but he does not believe in continuously breathing down their neck in order to make things happen. Team spirit is often enhanced by this kind of leadership, because when individual leaders feel that they are not under scrutiny, they are not under a scanner all the time, they are not asked to explain any of their conduct or performance on a regular basis, but are actually given that kind of an independence to prove themselves through their own merit, they enhance their loyalty, they enhance their belongingness to the leader in charge. It creates an environment of purpose and impact, and followers feel the drive towards the purpose. So that's what inspirational motivation, as demonstrated by leadership, transformational leadership, is all about. Now, let's look at individualized consideration. What about individualized? The extent to which a transformational leader attends to each follower's needs and is a mentor, coach, or guide to the follower is set to demonstrate individualized consideration. They are aware of individual talents of followers. They are empathetic and empathic to each person's situation and background. And this becomes a huge boost to motivating their performance through the purpose. This is very important to keep in mind, because individualized consideration is a great art of a great leader. When we talk of Rusi Modi, when we talk of Ratan Tata, when we talk of Azim Premji, when we talk of Nandan Nilekani, when we talk of Narayan Murthy, some of the things that we have heard, the stories that are related of these individuals are absolutely magnificent. Narayan Murthy was considered to be a person who could even tell the name of every guard who used to open the door for him at the entrance of the Infosys office, to that extent that he actually addressed them by their first name. Now you can imagine a guard, an individual whom people wouldn't even spare a second look, when the head of that organization, somebody who's a figure world over, acknowledges their presence and their identity by the first name. What does it do to that individual? Do you think that individual will ever leave that organization? Do you think anybody else can get their undivided loyalty after that kind of a demonstration? I am sure very recently you heard about, or you saw on WhatsApp, Ratan Tata's gesture of visiting Pune to actually visit one of his team members, one of his teammates who had been ill, keeping ill for the last 2 years. Now, which leader of that caliber does this? And this is not a learning from a textbook. This is something which comes from the heart. And this is what transformational leadership is all about. The last I of the model of transformation leadership is intellectual simulation. So we looked at the consciousness, we looked at the ability to take the teams along, we looked at leadership, longingness and loyalty, and now we are looking at building the intellectual capability. Intellectual stimulation is the extent to which transformational leaders challenge assumptions, take risks, and solicit followers' ideas. They recognize followers through simulations, creativity, and innovation. They follow a collaborative approach. So, as we had seen, quite unlike the transactional leaders, these people are not didactic. These people are not linear in approach. They are not instructional in the way they work with people. They adopt a collaborative approach. They encourage independence in thought and action, and they support new ways at work. Now that we have understood and understood the different nuances of the transformational leadership model, what does it really recognize, what does it bring to the forefront, let's look at some very interesting examples of these transformational leaders. Jeff Bezos of Amazon. HBR attributes Bezos's insider outsider status as part of what makes him a great transformational leader. As someone who jumped from the finance world, he brought a fresh perspective to e commerce through years of experience in a different industry. That completely nullifies our age old thought that you have to be a domain expert in order to lead well the organization of your choice. Jeff Bezos was no domain expert. He had no clue about e commerce. But when he came and climbed onto becoming the head honcho at Amazon, what he brought was a common sense approach, what is known as the insider outsider approach. He put his finance skills best to the insider approach, but he became an outsider customer just like anybody else. And that's the learning he brought to the table in order to make Amazon what it is today. This is known as transformational leadership, where you not only believe in your ability of learning or your ability of competence, not only do you actually pay attention to your skill, which has been honed over years, but you also look at what other complements can you draw, whether they are latent to you, whether they are active to you, whether they are intrinsic or whether they are extrinsic. You need to know how to draw those resources together in order to create a different paradigm of excellence altogether. Look at Reed Hastings of Netflix. Hastings has tied for first alongside Bezos. This was a great Gartner study that happened in the year 2018. Gartner is a worldwide consulting firm which takes care of leadership, which basically conducts studies in leadership. And for the first time, Hastings of Netflix tied for the first place alongside Bezos, and for similar reasons. Reed Hastings was a software engineer. He grew up like a software engineer the hard way in a software industry. He wasn't even rooted in pre-established process and procedures in the television industry. He knew nothing about the print and the audio and the video of what goes into television. He didn't even understand what made the customers tick. And yet, when he came to Netflix and he became the head of that place, all he did was put his common sense approach along with his technical prowess honed in the software industry to take Netflix to where it is today. Jeff Boyd and Glenn Fogel of Priceline. Boyd and Fogel reinvented travel reservations by charging lower commission fees on reservations but focused on smaller niche markets. The entire concept of Airbnb has come from this particular area. Inns, B&Bs, bed and breakfast, and apartments. Eventually, Jeff Boyd and Glenn Fogel's approach, which they actually demonstrated in Priceline, spawned Booking.com. And Booking.com was perhaps the first pioneer in the world space which moved out from only reservations of hotels and resorts to looking at smaller properties which could be run by individual owners of those properties and made into a very popular customer choice called homestays. These are innovation people. People like Boyd and Fogel were never content with what they had before them. They were already market leaders. They were already doing well for themselves. But that did not satiate their creative minds as somebody as people who were just not doing enough. So they not only looked at the travel industry, but they also looked at different aspects of what customer orientation is in different markets and borrowed that knowledge in order to convert the working of Priceline into Booking.com. Steve Jobs and Tim Cook of Apple. HBR points to Apple as an example of dual transformation. So, Apple is considered to be the story of a dual transformation. Jobs innovated on original Microsoft products while also building a software ecosystem. Cook extended on Jobs' vision, maintaining a focus on innovation, software, and brand loyalty. Because of the fact that Tim Cook, when he overtook the leadership from Steve Jobs, did not overturn everything that Steve Jobs had done, but actually built what he had in mind on top of what actually, the elder predecessor had continuously brought about. This was known as a dynamic case of dual transformation. Mark Bertolini of AICTE. Bertolini is known for his realistic management approach in the healthcare industry. He says his goal is to build strategies around a realistic vision of the future. Mark Bertolini is known as one of those persons who, if he takes two steps ahead, also takes one step behind. He's a master in strategizing for growth with a clear vision of the future, but is also known to consolidate his everyday strategy on a very real time basis. Ken Thierry of Davita. Thierry managed to take a bankrupt company and turn it into a thriving business through firm core values that included service excellence, teamwork, accountability, and fun. He was perhaps the first person who brought the concept of fun at the workplace alive. He was the first person who instituted a very formal training at the workplace, which was called Lending a Smile to My Managers. Now, you can imagine which other leader, which other creative minded leader will actually think of humor or a smile being a determinant of leadership quality. But that is what Ken Thierry did for his group of managers, and every manager in Davita went on to undergo the complete training on how to remain happy and prosperous with yourself. It was a wonderful piece of action. It was a wonderful strategy to have done that at Davita at the time that it did, because the company was running into trouble. It was already, blacklisted. It was already bankrupt, and more such negativity was coming into the business. And that was the time when a smile-induced philosophy on the part of the chairman actually did the 360-degree turnaround. Satya Nadella, Microsoft. Nadella started at Microsoft in 92 and worked his way up at the corporate ladder, eventually running the business cloud computing efforts, which landed him the executive position. Now, Nadella, when he actually started working on the cloud was still very much in the clouds. It was not a reality at all. It was not something which could be fathomed in the proper way. But Satya Nadella did not give up. There are fantastic stories about the time when when he would sit down for dinner, and when he would fork his fork his cutlery through possibly the morsels of rice on the plate itself, he would actually start drawing the cloud formations with rice patterns. That's because he was possessed by cloud. It was on him. He had to make it happen because of what had happened in the past. And that's commitment, and that's execution focus for you. Emmanuel Faber of Danone. Faber started out as an architect for Danone and earned the CEO job after he helped develop the company's vision to turn the company into a sustainable health and nutrition company. Last but not the least, Heinrich Hiesinger of ThyssenKrupp. Hiesinger became the CEO of ThyssenKrupp in 2011 and helped alleviate pressure from Asian competitors in the steel market by embracing the newer forms of manufacturing, including 3D printing, new growth areas that now make up 47% of the entire ThyssenKrupp business's sales. So that's what you have when you talk about transformational leaders. People who have gone beyond the obvious, people who have moved out of the storybooks and the textbooks, people who have broken the walls and actually marched ahead in thinking about what can happen under the sun, what more can happen under the sun. People who have spent days and nights dreaming of a vision that they have themselves orchestrated to come and put in place. So that's what we feel a transformational leadership is really all about. And some of the examples tell you what all can be achieved if we give in to at least developing certain habits around this kind of a leadership. From examples, we move on to the key characteristics of transformational leaders. I've tried to keep this very simple and very, very simple words also. I did not want to put any jargons here because jargons only make things complicated for us. Rather, if we explain in very simple words, it becomes very commonplace. It becomes easy for us to fathom and also incorporate. I can learn faster. Key characteristics of transformational leaders. The first one, they keep their egos in check. They do not allow the egos to interfere with the best interests of the teams or organizations. They are as best as their teams are. And they say it repeatedly, no small number of times. The second, very important, the leader that way is able to put the organization interest before their own and extracts best performances from all. So you saw something as cardinal as keeping your egos in check can lead to higher performance standards and better organizational progression than ever before. Transformational leaders strictly believe in self management, as we have already seen. They do not need direction from others most times. They manage themselves very well. And because they are independent minded and they manage themselves very well, they are also highly internally motivated. They use the motivation to guide organizations in the right direction. The third, there is always a soft or an emotional side to transformational leaders. That is, they often do what they love. Their values are aligned to those of the organization that they lead. So, as you see, for transformational leaders, there's a very strong correlation between the style element that he carries to exactly the kind of deliverable that this household seeks. Third point, or third characteristics that transformational leaders have, they have the ability to take the right risks. This is a key characteristic of a transformational leader. They trust their instincts. They use the intelligence gathered by team members to take informed decisions. So this obviously tells you to what extent transformational leaders include participation. Team loyalty, in which case, is absolute. They seek counsel from team members to take risky decisions that facilitate growth. So, for all you know, a 19 or a 20-year-old individual can tomorrow choose to exactly adopt that line where he would obviously set up his own center of excellence. The fourth important characteristic of transformational leaders, they take difficult decisions. They have the courage to do so. They do not shy away from taking tough calls. They make their decisions with a clear focus on values involved, vision required, objectives to be followed, and goals to be reached of the organization. So these are the four cardinal principles that we had already seen earlier. And these four cardinal principles continue to be the four pillars of this particular theory. Next characteristics, shares collective organizational consciousness. So transformational leaders shares and understands the collective consciousness of the entire organization. They are attuned to the feelings of team members, able to take actions that elicit desired actions from the employees. They take decisions that spur growth. I'm sorry, gentlemen and ladies, I think there's a bit of a spell error here. It should be spur, S-P-U-R. Uh, they create a shared vision for the organization that employees feel a part of. Primarily, what it says is transformational leaders create a vision for the organization, which becomes a borrowed vision for all employees. They're able to paint such beautiful colors. They're able to give such a grand vision. They're able to print very beautiful, theories and uh, uh, future plans for their organizations, that automatically their people starts becoming loyal in following their visions around. Okay. Next important characteristics, they are inspirational in style and substance. We have already discussed this. They motivate others best to rise to the occasion. They treat every employee as a correction. They treat every employee as a valued partner in organization building. They genuinely take an interest in the well-being and productivity of the team members. So here are people who nurture their followers. Here are people who mentor and coach their subordinates. It is a wonderful opportunity for our next generation to be able to take the benefit of any such quality programs that are run primarily in order to understand what should be the working skills of a transformational leader. This particular book and the training alongside would be of immense value to every member attending the same. Next important characteristic would be the transformational leaders entertain new ideas. They're highly open and receptive to new ideas. They understand that fresh insights and new ideas remain the key determinants of growth. So they're very clear that if you have to strike growth, then you have to also cultivate fresh issues, fresh news. They're very, very clued on that. Defines and implements processes in place to solicit new ideas and taps across all levels. So it's not just that they define, and they also sort of solicit views on new insights or new situations, but they make sure that they do not create any kind of differentiation while doing so. They ask every single member in the household to be able to opine to that. Next point, transformational leaders demonstrate adaptability. They always have an eye on the market to keep moving forward. They are ever willing to adapt to new situations. They seek creative ways to respond to dynamic business environments, and they have a great risk-taking ability. We have discussed this risk-taking ability off and on, okay, with respect to other points, but this is the point which makes it more relevant than ever. The very fact that transformational leaders are built adaptable to situations makes it very interesting for them to actually walk the talk. Second last, transformational leaders are proactive. Number one, always has an eye for opportunities ahead while protecting the flanks. They are growth oriented. They apply common sense in leadership and leadership and leave and eliminate others earlier, and are risk takers. I think the fact that they are big on risk taking, they believe in risk taking, is something which is now going to come very easily after all. Last but not the least, transformational leaders lead with vision. They set a realistic and achievable vision for the organization. They're great communicators of that vision to employees across, and they get people to commit and lend purpose. It also mitigates detraction in the process, which means that when you have a stated mission and a vision, and you know very well where you have to go, and you know how to take your people forward along with that, it does become just a part of a process. It becomes a part of an organic delivery, and therefore it mitigates any chances of distraction whatsoever. It also steers organizations onto the paths of growth. So when you don't have confusion and you are landed up with clarity about what is to be done, then the time has come to get that done. Therefore, after understanding the key characteristics of the transformation leaders, let's quickly, in one slide, understand the unique facets of transformational leaders. Transformational leaders guide followers through inspiration and motivation. Excellent. We've already discussed this. Second important point, transportation and transportational leaders believe and rely a lot on a factor called charisma. I think that's something which I mentioned when I mentioned Mahatma Gandhi. When I mentioned that, the personal choice or the personal prerogative of bringing self to the forefront because of certain personal attributes is something which is given to the transformational leaders. So transformation leaders relies on charisma. They also are positive role models regardless of hierarchy. So it doesn't depend whether a transformational leader by nature or by practice is a deputy manager, and it does not matter at all whether that person then assumes the role of a vice president. Across the priorities, across the company, across any kind of illness, across any kind of thought leadership, transformational leaders will only go through trains and trams, things which go slow, and things that are able to lend that kind of a momentum ahead. So transformation leaders are positive role models regardless of hierarchy. Transformation leadership increases financial performance. Let's understand, it definitely increases financial performance, because with the kind of bonding, the kind of loyalty, okay, that comes with people working in this company, attrition rate is likely to be quite low. And this in itself is a great barometer of why we always have to be careful as to what is the most ideal way to create positivity in terms of growth parameters for the particular company. In contrast to transactional leadership focuses on deviation management and corrective action. As we have seen in transactional leadership syndrome, there are boundaries which are already set and there are borders which can't be changed. Therefore, you do what you do within that boundary and are able to strike only that much difference. Now, this could definitely be something worth noting for, because here it talks about a regressive project, whereas in our case, we are moving into a much more cohesive territory, which not only allows you to maneuver, but somewhere even talk, even be a little dependent, as long as the whole thing gets done properly. So these are some of the unique facets of transformational leadership. They guide through inspiration and motivation. They obviously depend a lot on this function called charisma. While I keep on talking about Mahatma Gandhi in this context about charisma, otherwise, how would you describe a man wearing a simple, thin, white-colored dhoti with a stick in hand and a half-baked chashma that he used to carry? How is it that he used to almost sprint? And many a times, one has said that the charisma was always on display. Wasn't that more for self than for any other good? But what you did not understand is the larger good stayed in the background. But if the charisma was not cultivated, how would you even reach that goal? So these people were intelligent enough to make the news and to make sure that everything that was happening around the organizations kept on giving protection or giving that kind of leverage to the particular cycle. Okay. Let's also look at a couple of downsides of transformational leadership, because otherwise it won't be complete. Transformational leadership is too static and oversimplified in corporate life. This is important. It is said that the corporate life is rather complex, much more than only the leader and the follower relationship that we have been talking about. But however, I wanted right now both the lines to be aligned, because that was just a question, not leading to anything else. So here in transformational leadership, they say that organizations are far, far more complex, okay, than we can think of. And if found so, then we can obviously get some more coffee along the way. But at the end of the day, it is important to understand that complexity can only be handled by someone at this stage to a certain extent, but not all the time. The next important downside of transformation leadership is the overemphasis on the great leader. It is said that the overpowering dependence of this model on the great charismatic leader is a fallacy on its own. The alternate could be more than emphasis on great teams instead. This needs to be understood a little carefully. When you overemphasize on the contribution of a single member of a team, and also find that that person is privileged, that person actually runs a very tight ship and is yet able to maintain his health and health quite well, it doesn't take too long for one to look at the other and start thinking, what if it could be me? Therefore, it is important that instead of only concentrating on the superior transformational leaders, we should also make sure that there is equal and adequate importance laid and given to better teams instead. Instead of the great leader fascination, we should look at great teams instead. The systems and the situations and the processes so defined would thereafter be having to change their mind direction, not only towards an individual, which happens to be the final leader, but also to multiple number of other leaders as well as people down the lines in that organization, which is going to be so much a change, so much of ever powering fluid, okay, from now onwards. Last but not the least, the transformational leadership model is flawed. This is a technical argument. I did not really want to bring the technical argument because then there would be a lot of maths, that I would need to. Except it would suffice to say that from a branding perspective, especially from a branding perspective, the transformational leadership model is considered to be a little flawed because there are other conditionalities beyond just the Chile bow and the Chile, beyond the fact that transformation leadership model talks about intellectual stimulation, talks about individual sensitization, it talks about many such performers, but it does not, by scientific evaluation, leads to metrics that can actually evaluate its efficiencies and gives us the productivity quotient for this kind of a leadership model. So the three major downsides, if we can crush them together and if we can summarize, we find that the transformation leadership is too static and oversimplified with respect to what happens in the corporate life. So the main problem of structural scientists who have made this comment, they feel that if there are multiple complications that affect an organization and those complexities are those that are of a continuing nature, it might just be difficult for the person in charge to be able to handle those kind of problems. The second important point we talked about was that transformation leadership is not about just a great leader, but needs to talk about great teams. Transformation leadership model is flawed, not just because of certain wrong practices that have happened in that, but also because of the fact that through metrics, scientifically, the leadership model cannot be explained to the best of everyone's ability. Is it now clear for most people about what is transformational leadership? What are the key characteristics of a transformational leader? Who are the best examples of a transformational leader? And finally, what are also the downsides of the same?
Yes, ma'am, it was very much clear about the transformation leadership, but what it attracted to myself was the downside. My question is how practical is transformation leadership in educational higher education fields?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and a lot of exploration, a lot of examination is going on in this area because, to be very honest, most of the experiments around transformational leadership has actually focused in two major areas. One is the corporate, the second is defense. Most of the examples that we get in not only the anecdotal examples as well as those in the textbooks and structures basically relate to those programs will basically relate to those programs which are either a matter of a case study in the corporate zone, or there have been studies around great names in the defense who have been major deliverers during the times of wars, and people have been very keen to read up on them. When you talk about the academic situations, we will definitely have to have a relook at the same, because transformational leadership, when applied to the education sphere, will probably have to also be tweaked slightly. Because when we talk about the academia, unlike a corporate house, which doesn't suddenly requires a growth potential at all points of time and needs to profit maximize at every level of its sustenance, the academic genre is not of the same. the academic institutions not only have to look at sustenance, not only have to look at nurturing, but they also have to look at the quality of the pedagogy. They also have to look at the quality of what they're delivering to the children. They also have to possibly look at a heritage name being protected. So there are so many other considerations that come into being, when you talk about the wrong, the naysayers and the wrong kinds of opinions that happen, and the fact that there has been less number of examples that have been drawn from the academic sector. So there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. We rarely come across any examples that can be drawn from the academic scenario.
Good afternoon, madam. This is Professor Lakshman. I'm from Manipal. Now, this transformational leadership can be negative sometimes, right? So you take the case of Mr. Hitler, right?
Oh yes, oh yes.
So like what to say, even in if you see, especially in academia also, right? I don't want to name. There are very like what to say, lot of institution where in which you see that like the entire institution getting ruined because of like what to say, the leaders who occupy those like what to say, very important decision making roles, right? What's your like what to say, call on that, like how to overcome these issues? These are the biggest problems what like what is as an academician like we face.
Thank you, sir, for this question. Thank you very much. They're very relevant.
I thank you too, because it brings to the forefront a very topical issue and a very, very critical point that we are all debating today, especially in this pandemic, where our kids, our children studying in the different academic institutions are facing such a lot of debacle because of the way the patterns of the institutions have evolved over a period of time. I think these important questions definitely need to be presented and explored more than anything else. So rightly pointed out, Professor and gentlemen, as many there have been Mahatma Gandhis and Martin Luther Kings in the world who have been transformational leaders, who have led from the front and have brought about absolute positive courage and a change in the destiny of nations, a change in the destiny of countries and cultures. There have been the Hitlers too. There have been the Stalins too. There have been the Mussolinis too. In the recent past, we have also had the ignominious Saddam Hussein. We have also had, I forget his name, Gaddafi. Yes, Gaddafi. So we've had multiple such negative leadership issues. All of these are transformational leadership. Please don't ever think that they are transactional. They have had the courage, they have had the charisma, they have had the power to simply sweep nations to follow their examples. It started with Hitler and it has now continued even with the Fidel Castro, even with the Gaddafi, as we talk about, and a Saddam also, who took the entire period and redefined nation building and brought about economics and politics together through his own example. We can also talk about transformational leadership in other fields. Look at religion. Look at religion. What can start out as a great example of positive energy can sometimes turn around and be a disastrous example. I quote the example of Bhindranwale. Transformational leadership beyond compare. It started off as an example of a political party and assumed a position of its own. From a person who had very, very myopic views, he was transformed into a godly figure. And look at what havoc it played on the polity of our nation.
Yes, very much
So
true.
transformational leadership does not need to be, and I put down a point of caution here, cannot always be seen through the rose-tinted glasses of positivism. There are equal number of examples of wrongdoing, of wrong people, of wrong approaches, and they continue to be there in your and my society. So you just need to look left and right and you will find examples who are continuing to be there even today. Now, when it comes to the academic life, and very, very relevant, as I already said, I also know, I'm sorry, but I will not take the names, but I also know of exemplary institutes who were once upon a time considered to be the doyens of academic excellence, who actually paved the way, the positive way for other institutes to come in place. But because of men with vested interest, because of people with a certain genre of thought leadership, because of people who wanting to actually direct the entire movement to an end which was more self-serving, many such institutions have actually fallen on their face. And it is a very sad commentary today to see some of those institutes, which had once upon a time been glorious institutes, today actually not even being in the reckoning. Okay, there are also institutes who continue to be called transformational. The institutes are called transformational by virtue of certain leaders who are rhetorical. Now, transformation leadership is not rhetorical. It is not all about jargons. I made that very clear right at the start, that we complicate our lives and our management understanding by the use of huge words and the jargons of a management dictionary. It is not so. It is not rhetorical. By the use of huge words, by the power of your oratory, by the power of your speech, that does not give you the power to actually existentially, remarkably put down the path of excellence. It is through action. It is through your style of taking people along. It is through inculcating a participative and a collaborative approach. It is by gaining positive influences from and borrowing and gaining positive influences from around you, from the life patterns that we see, that people come together to delineate a path for themselves which is more positive in nature. When it comes to an academic institution, it is even more critical that we look at people who have the goodness of creating that hub of education for tomorrow, because this is where the young minds which are as soft as mud, okay, they get their conditioning. This is where the young minds go and get programmed. This is where we lay the foundations for what our next generations are going to be like. And this has to be, again, a collaboration between possibly certain amount of government action, certain amount of academic excellence, and I'm sorry to say, a lot of responsibility also lies on the parents, also lies on the children and their families, because unfortunately, this has become a herd mentality. Despite knowing that certain academic institutions are no longer the storehouses of excellence, or they don't impart the right kind of education, people still continue to be in a line, willing to pay through their nose, doing whatever they can in order to get their wards into those institutions. Now, if that pattern continues to happen, then it is not a lesson that you're giving, that you're actually teaching to that institute. Instead, there are centers of excellence. There are small pockets of excellence, small areas where education is being imparted by people who have exercised and who continue to exercise very frugal, very minimalistic ways of imparting education. But those are not even quoted. Those are not even looked at as something which is mainstream, primarily because, again, they remain in the peripheries of our society. Now, that is unfortunately what reality in life has become. To me, academic excellence is beyond even question. Till the time you are able to address these lacunas, whether it is in the quality of people, whether it is in the morality of people, whether it is in the quality of the processes as well as the structures that you put in place, or whether it is the vision that you draw up for that place of excellence, those remain uppermost of concern to each one of us, because corporates come later. Corporates come later. Corporates draw from the strength of the academics. Corporates actually take what is the cream from the academics. So till the time the academic life or the academic institutions revamp their structures, look at the leadership that they are providing to themselves, look at where they want to go in terms of determining the vision and the mission for themselves, there is very little, that can sustain the level of brilliance And that is why, if you look at some of the figures, some of the statistics that we talk about, and some of the studies that have taken place of you know, there was a time when we used to say that the quality of education in India was so high.
Yeah, please go ahead, ma'am.
The quality, there was a time when we used to say that the quality of education was so high in India that when the West looked at where to go and draw strength from, you know, India was an emerging market. They couldn't overlook us. They couldn't overstep us. They would have to come to us and establish their areas of excellence, because it was not just because we had cheap labor, but we had the highest standards of economic education. Despite the fact that we paid less, our quality of education was top notch. And a proof of the same is today, sitting in the Western world. You walk into any Ivy League college. There's actually a lot of background noise. Can I please request gentlemen to be on mute?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Very kind. So the example lies in the Ivy League colleges of the West. You get into Columbia, you go to University of California, you go to Harvard, you go to any such, ACLA, Penn State, you go to any of those huge, leadership academies in the West, you will find that every department, especially in the areas of softer sciences, humanities, and learning sciences, it is the Indians who are the heads of departments. The deans, the professors, they are exemplary writing research papers, and you will come across at every stage, either it's a Sethuraman, or it's a Kapoor, or it's a Bakshi, or it's a Ghosh, but they are all over the place. Then how come education in my own country today is suffering so much? Why has this brain drain happened? The brain drain has not just happened from IIT. Unfortunately, the brain drain has not happened from the IIMs alone. The brain drain has also happened of very good academic people from class B, class C cities and institutes, as and when they have gotten an opportunity. Because our own institutions have failed to give them an opportunity to shine on their own, or to provide the systems in which they could have stayed back and done some human service to this country itself. This is what brings brings me to a state of boil, because I have traveled world over. I have met with these people, and two of my best friends, I mean, from my school. One is the placement committee head in Colombia, and the kind of stories she narrates, the kind of stories she talks about in terms of how many Indians go and actually try to get into settling into those lives, and they are all academics. They don't go there for corporate. They go there because they want to write a good research paper. They want to have that ability, the ability to have a little bit of a support in terms of monetary help. Nothing seems to be available with our academic faculties. And this was not the case earlier. So yes, you are right. Something has gone wrong. Something has gone drastically wrong. And there probably is the need for a relook at what do we do. Does it require a 360-degree revamp? Or does it require a certain amount of creative innovation? Does it require some amount of disruption? We have brought all this into the corporate life. We have allowed corporates to get shaken up. Why aren't we doing it for the academic systems? We need to. We certainly need to.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
One more question, ma'am. Can I take one more question?
I will definitely take your question, but I just have one small piece to conclude my presentation, and
Yes,
that
please,
might
ma'am.
also answer your question in a way. Because just after the downsides, I think the final slide I present on before all of you are the key takeaways, and that is transformation leaders are visionaries. Transformation leaders attend to each follower's needs. Transformational leaders empower their followers to perform beyond normal expectations. Transformational leaders are excellent role models. They are also, they use intellectual simulations to motivate followers to think outside the box. Compared to transactional leadership, transformational leadership is positively related to organizational performance. and they have some shortcomings. Transformational leadership has some shortcomings, professionals and managers that should be aware of. Finally, in times of disruption, transformational leadership has proven to be agile in thought and action. It's because of the characteristics that inherently describe a transformational leader that we find that in today's age of disruption, where there's a digital revolution happening, where new workforce management thoughts are coming in place, where the gig economy is in place, where the digital nomads are coming in and getting into the workforce management, where ways of performance management are undergoing a change, where analytics is becoming the order of the day, we find that transformational leaders have proven to be agile in thought and action, which is so important. They have been nimble with respect to structuring issues. We find today organizations are more akin to structuring themselves in a go to market fashion so that they are able to break down hierarchical patterns, archaic patterns, and become more relevant to the marketplace today. Transformational leadership are quick on feet, solution oriented, and execution focused. They don't spend time mulling and brooding over why things didn't happen the way they did or what can we do for unending periods of time. They are quick, they are solution oriented, not problem oriented, and finally execution focused. They take people along. So that's one of their biggest strengths, that they are charismatic, they are able to motivate, they are able to lend purpose to what they speak, and
कहाँ हो
therefore
तो
they
मैंने
take people
मान
along.
लिया है वैसे भी।
And finally, they believe in participative management all along. Thank you so much. That brings me to the close of my structured presentation, and I'll be happy to take any number of questions that you may have.
One question, ma'am.
Ma'am,
That
I
I
will
was.
take quick questions. Once
Ma'am, one question, ma'am, please allow.
already we have crossing time for the next session.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask that since major of the corporate world that exist in Indian perspective are dynastic, so how relevant is your transformational leadership is more prevalent in the dynastic corporates that exist in India, exception to Tata? Thank you, ma'am.
Wonderful question. Again, wonderful question. It's always nice when you get to have these kind of challenging questions at the end of a discourse, because that enhances the learning, that enhances the ability to actually learn from each other. Why would you say exception of only the Tatas? Why wouldn't you say exception of also Narayan Murthy? Do any of Narayan Murthy's children hold positions in Infosys?
No, ma'am. Actually, Tata and exceptionally the example of Rusi Modi that I had gone through, their actions were a lot. They
Yeah,
spoke a lot
absolutely.
about their actions rather
Absolutely.
than Narayan Murthy and his wife. They are more into service. I presume that, but the actions of Tata family actually makes a lot. And one more example of one diamond cutter family from Surat, and
Surat.
I am
Yeah,
forgetting the name.
yeah. Raj. Yeah, okay. I think his name is Vijan Bhai Raj. Anyway, so no,
Yeah, sure, sure.
the reason why I said why just Tata. See, Tata is an institution in India. The House of Tatas is no longer considered a corporate. Okay, to be very honest, Tata is a textbook for us. Tata is a reference book for us. Any aspect of management, whether it's financial management, whether it's ethical management, whether it's cultural progression, whether it's how do you mold youngsters and groom them into managers for tomorrow, these are examples that Tatas have mastered, and mastered not only for themselves but have mastered for the industry. So Tata to me is no longer just a corporate house. I don't even give its example as just another corporate. I call it the institution, which is a reference textbook for us. Okay. But if you move a little away from Tata and look at exactly the core of your question, that in a dynastic situation, okay, in a dynastic situation where you see people actually moving from generations and holding, and it becomes very commonplace for the next generation to pick up positions in their own industry. Well, there have been very remarkable examples of not being that too. And I will give you certain examples, and I meant Infosys when I said it. Narayan Murthy, not Sudha Murthy. Dr. Sudha Murthy was always in charge of the philanthropy and social service part of Infosys. She still continues to lead the CSR part, but she was not into active management positions. It was Narayan Murthy who was actually the chairman of Infosys, right? And at that time only, despite the fact that Narayan Murthy's own children, the two sons that he has, were actually getting educated at Wharton and in Penn State, um, he never thought it, even for a minute, to automatically give them positions of directorship in Infosys, just like every other organization. And I will not name them, but they are all the big houses that we have. They automatically delineate that the director of production or the director of, if not any other function, at least the director of human resource will definitely become the immediate progeny. Okay, because they feel anybody can do human resource. What's big in it? Okay, now the fantastic part is Narayan Murthy picked up the best performing managers from Infosys, gave them stocks, gave them ESOPs, which made them millionaires overnight. Whether it was a Mohandas Pai or whether it was a Nandan Nilekani. Okay, you need to talk to them, you need to read their biographies, you need to look at the philosophy that they have held under Narayan Murthy to understand that there was a time when even they had these insecurities, that would it be that one day the sons would come back and take upon that role. And Narayan Murthy used to be very oblivious to it and say they have to first prove themselves. Unfortunately, till date, Narayan Murthy feels that the sons have not proven themselves to be able to take over any of the positions in Infosys, and they continue now to hold positions abroad. One of them is employed in a company which is not any part of Infosys. The other one, yes, is an Infosys, but is in a different market and is in a managerial position. No way has he been given any kind of a vice president or director position, which automatically becomes the preserve of any other company. So it is not necessary that we only look at a few examples. There are many good examples which are there. However, it takes courage, it takes a lot of foresight, it takes tremendous amount of acumen to be able to say that yes, I will go beyond just the family, and I will look at the most capable of my managers to be able to come and take the positions. um, yes, you're right. I mean, we have very few of such pioneering and risk-taking powerhouses in India. But then we have examples. We have examples more like the Surat diamond merchant. We have examples in the Amul movement. We have examples in TVS. We have examples down south, where a large number of very, very parochial and very strong business houses, they have made a deviation, and they have actually gone and found out professional managers from the market to take over management for the next generation. So it's not that it is not available, but yes, we need much more of it. And much more will only come when transformational leadership becomes a norm in the corporate house. Unfortunately, we have had them in polity, we have had them in economy, we've had them in religion, but not so much still in the Indian economic and corporate zones.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, Dr. Debjani Roy. I love your energy, actually, the way you have tried means in terms of engaging the entire crowd. It was completely awesome. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. As we know that...
I hope I've been able to do justice, Shikta. I mean, I wish we could have a whole day of discussions. These topics are so relevant.
we know
But
that...
I humbly say that it's been a wonderful platform. I've really enjoyed having more than 100 plus participants. Thank you for all your time, and it's been great discussing, this topic with you. And thank you, Shikta ma'am, again for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Wish to see you more.
I will say bye to everyone.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.
We'll be starting with our next session just in a 15 minutes break. So all of you can take a break.
Till then, bye-bye, and thank you very much for being there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So we'll have our next speaker, who is Raiguru Mangesh, and he will be talking about a very, very new approach of leadership, which is Neuro-Linguistic Leadership. So all of us, be with us. Right at 12 o'clock, we are going to start with our next session. If you wish, you can stay over here by being offline for a few minutes.
Madam, are you going to share the PPTs?
Yes, sir, I'm going to share definitely once I receive, because some of the information, as few of the speakers, there are confidential. So they were going to edit it and they are going to send it back. After that, I'm going to share it with all of you. As such,
Sure, ma'am. Thank
the
you.
PPT of Dr. Sharad Mahapatra, sir, and the recordings also. So the bit of editing is done to the recording. Once it is done, I am sharing everything on over mail as well as in WhatsApp.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
So a very good afternoon, one and all. So welcome back. I hope all of you have taken a break. So I would request those of who have not joined quickly to join us. So we have already our resource person with us, Dr. Mangesh Raiguru. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation
Thank you.
and
Thank
be
you
over
so
here
much.
with the KIT School of Management, KIT University. Dr. Mangesh, with 26 years of experience as a OD consultant, a motivational speaker, a corporate trainer, coach, psychotherapist, and a professor in management. He possesses a PhD degree in stress management, as well as has his MPhil and master's degree in PMIR. He has pursued quality improvement program from XLRI, IIT Kharagpur, and MDI Gurgaon. And apart from that, he is an MTC trainer and a master practitioner in NLP from ANLP India. At present, he is the advisor and co-founder of Twaran, the president of CHT NLR, and vice president of ANLP India. Dr. Raiguru has a long career in the span of 26 years, which includes 7 years in core HR and operations as a senior level management, 19 years into corporate training, HROD consulting and management teaching, and as well as he was a former director of a leading business school. He has been the awardee of NIPM SB Mishra Gold Medal for his excellence and his work in the field of HR, and has received multiple Best Research Paper Award by Indian Society of Training and Development. He has an eminent NLP trainer award bestowed by the Bestow Endurance, and as a distinguished corporate trainer award 2020. I would request, there are so many accolades which has been tied down, and we are really, really honored to have you, sir, along with us. Today's session will be devoted to Neuro-Linguistic Leadership. It's completely new for me, belonging to the area of economics and finance, and I hope many of you are also going to have a great knowledge about that what Neuro-Linguistic is and how do it work. So with that, I hand over the entire session to Dr. Mangesh. Thank you again for being and accepting our invitation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Sikta Singh. And this is indeed a very good job you are doing. And I congratulate K. Som for having organizing this FDP. I somehow got quite connected with the topic, which says that leadership generation next, exerting influence, not authority. And I am quite sure all of you, all participants who are here, by this you must have, or you must be agreeing that a leader influences. That is how a leader is different from any other terminology we use for people who can make use of human being to get something done. Maybe somebody calls it a manipulator, somebody calls motivator, or somebody maybe manager. And we talk about that leader is a person who influences. And you know, generally what happens? Human beings are like water. Like if you hold water in your palm and you hold it, you cannot hold it. Water will spill through its own way. So water will always find out its own way. Similarly, human beings are always channelized towards a direction. So what a leader does, leader mostly influences the human being to get through a channel that may be giving him or her, or maybe the organization, maybe the association, the best of the result. So what I'm going to talk to you about, since this principle, these rules are very clear, what I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to talk to you how the principles of neuro-linguistic programming. I'm also aware of the fact that some of you must be completely aware of what is NLP. Some of you might be partially aware of, and some of you might have heard about it. So let me not get into the complete detailing of NLP. Rather, I can talk about certain principles that of NLP or neuro-linguistic programming that can be applied in the leadership journey. And this is just going to make it so unique. So I'm just going to discuss my points with a presentation. And what I want during my talk, there are some points where I would like to communicate with each of you. So if it is feasible, you can unmute and talk, or else talk to me in the chat window, and we will keep it interactive for the best of interest and learning of all of us. And therefore, Dr. Sikta, is my slide visible? Just an yes from your end. Okay.
It's very much visible. Yeah.
Nice of you. So thank you very much. So I'm going to talk about something called as the neurological leadership. So what and the talk I'm going to do, I'm organizing it into three parts. So it is part one has got 4 points, part two has got 4 points, and part three has got 4 points. That's why I made something like that 4 into 4 principle of leadership style. So this is an introduction to neuro-linguistic leadership. I'm just going to talk about. So how I'm going to commence is certain beliefs, the best of the leaders, they always carry, and certain mechanisms, the best of the leaders, they follow, and certain ways, the best of the leaders, they communicate. And if you combine these three things, then you know what happens that makes a neuro-linguistic leadership. And that is the context, the pretext, and the design of my presentation. And any moment any of you would like to ask questions, you can definitely ask. If I can have an access of the chart window, this is really good. If I cannot have an access of the chart window, maybe like if one of you can unmute and talk, or maybe if Dr. Sikta can help me out, if there is something on the chart window, that will always
Sure, I
help.
will be helping you in between.
So nice of you, Dr. Sikta. So let us understand the rule number one of leadership or leader beliefs. So I have made it at three categories. Leader beliefs, how leader they work. I'm the best of the leaders. Second is how a leader, or they utilizes the pretext of the way the human being does. And third, how linguistics can be coined into that. So first rule that all of us, we know it, that leadership is the scientific art of influencing. And by this, all of us, we agree to this proposition that leadership is a scientific art of influencing. And if I ask you this point, if some of you believe, you can tell yes, yes, yes in the chat window. If you do not believe, you can tell no, no, no in the chat window. So choice is yours. Do you believe that bad leaders misguide and create followers? And do you also believe that good leaders guide and create leaders? If you believe this, you can give your responses in the chat window, either an yes or no, maybe quickies, I can get something from some of you. Wow, I see Ms. Garvita, Dr. Farah, Mr. Professor Bikram, Dr. Sailaja, some of you completely agree. So since I'm also from teaching background, so this is, I say Dr. Bhakti, absolutely wonderful. Professor Fernandez, yes. Chiranjeevi, yes. So this is a common belief, all of us believe. So that means we are definitely very good leaders, because this is how good leaders they believe. And we also believe this means we are good leaders. Now what happens? If this is the belief, then I'm giving you a situation. Generally in the situation, what happens? And this is just from field we have seen, whether you talk about retail, you talk about education, you talk about factories, you talk about banks. In many organizations or many categories of organization, there is a leadership situation. And we all believe that good leaders guide and create leaders, right? This is what we believe. Now, if you believe that, then if I will ask you certain thing, and the other thing, have you experienced? If you have experienced, then also you got to communicate with me in the chat window. If you believe that leaders create leaders, then I'm giving you a situation. This is the situation. When one team member asks the leader, when one team member asks the leader, I'm unable to complete the task, please show me the way. Understand the situation. The one team member comes to the leader and say, boss, I'm unable to complete the task, please show me the way. Some of the leaders, they say that this is your job and you are paid for it. Don't ask me what to do. So this is, I don't say, everyone says, some of the leaders, they say, this is your job and you are paid for it. Don't ask me what to do. You, this the leader says, okay, you deal with it. This is your job. I'm nowhere responsible. Now tell me, have you ever heard or seen some of the leader who does this? When someone goes for a guidance, he say, boss, this is your job. You are paid for it. Do it and deal it the way. Some no or some yes. I will just prefer no, one, yes, one. Okay, we can collaborate and do the job. Yes, sometimes yes, yes. While I love these responses. Okay, so what I say, I mean, this experience is not mine only. I have seen some of you also have gone through similar or have observed some of the situation. So I take all the three views. Some of them they say yeah like that, and some of them they say no. Okay, so like that it happens. So now remember, if the person says, the leader says, you deal the task, do not bring it to me. Let us not collaborate. Let us not discuss around. This is your job, you do. Then what the leader is preparing. We discussed that good leaders do not create followers. Good leaders create leaders. And if this becomes a paradigm, this becomes a phenomenon, yes, most of the time, I've seen, and this is this is boss do not is the leader. I love these responses. And when you see that, when the leader, I mean, who is being designated as a leader, he does this, what is he creating in his organization? He is definitely creating. So on repeated practice of this, the leader actually creates in the organization someone called as dealers. So the leader, by talking about it, he's making, and people what they do, they start believing in shortcuts. Maybe some of them, they will believe in micromanagement, and things will happen to a way that they are going to create more of the dealers. And our paradigm is maybe our paradigm is little higher. So what we want to create is more of the leaders than dealers. So that is why the journey is from what neuro-linguistic processes we really can do, how we can use it, so that yes, he is creating a leader on the way. So that's how the basic difference it goes, as Professor Deepak Mitra has written. So what we talk about it, this journey of getting from a dealer's role to a leader's role, this is one of the things that is being done by some of the good leaders, because I have just taken some text from some of the studies and I'm just presenting before you. Then the second belief, we talk about some of the leaders, the carrier. So leaders, the belief that an individual can be more powerful and capable than the measured potential. Today in organizations, when we deal with people, we use certain tools to measure the potential of an individual. And we also have certain studies in organizational behavior that definitely has spoken that potential of an individual is never matched to the extent it is possible. And one of the idea which has been projected earlier is by Johari Window. It says that our unknown this font is very high. That is why it is believed that there are certain individuals who can perform beyond even their measured potential. Any potential appraisal tool that measures, and the people, they really can go beyond that. Therefore, what we say, if we look at in past, if you look at these individuals at a particular period of time, whatever they decided to be, and they have just gone beyond that. That is why what I say, this doesn't happen. Okay, so people, they really can do more than what can be tested on them. That is why the people potential is more than what it can be measured. Therefore, some of the successful person, they say the new potential today is what they can make it possible. So they have said that the new potential today is possibility. It's not that whatever I can do. That is why you will find today one of the training program that is happening across the globe is called possibility thinking. Earlier it was happening called positive thinking. That's a possibility thinking, because possibility is something that can actually make people to go beyond what even can be calibrated. And just after 5 minutes, I'm going to talk about it, how we can really do that. So when we talk about this, so we say incomplete is not incompetent. That's why if a new person, he joins an organization, he may not be knowing completely about the organization. But if he can be groomed by a process of influence by a leader, he can become definitely competent. So generally, a new intake doesn't mean, or a person who is not completely designed for the job can still perform more than what can be expected from him. And you take any organization, successful people, they behave like that. My third proposition that I'm talking about is leaders believe that groups can be organized into meaningful teams. I'm again giving a picture. From there you will understand. And it says that, suppose this is an organization. The organization has been designed, and there are people from various backgrounds. They want to join the organization. Then what happens? The organization is being created, and people from various backgrounds, they come to organization. Once the organization starts, people are there in the organization. Then what happens? Human beings are always individuals who want to work in association with others. They do not love to remain completely alone. That is why after a few days, you will find people will not be distributed like that. People will start connecting with each other, the way they connect. And the unique observation is that when people they connect with similarities. Say, suppose you are going and working in a different land, you will first connect with people who are from your state, who are from your background. If you are an engineer, you will connect with people who are engineer. If you are from a particular state, you will immediately connect with people from that particular state. So from your background, choices, preference, you will connect with people. And that is definitely not helpful for the organization, because when people with similar attitudes, or the similarities, they connect, what happens? They form a protection around them, and they form into groups, which is called as a groupism. And when they form groupism, each group, they may or may not support the other group. So what we organizations, they do, they break this, because what the group will do, maybe a group can be very good, each group will work to the perfection. But if the group connection will be lost, then that perfection will not give you results. So therefore, in this picture, it can be seen there are two groups. They did their work, but the connection was lost. That is why the group perfection could not happen. Therefore, what organizations they do, they introduce leaders, because the leaders' task is not to form groups and groupism, rather to dissolve that and to form teams. So in teams, what happens? People with complementary characters, they actually are being made together, because if I am good at something and I'm weak at something else, there is somebody in the team who is going to support me. So the responsibility becomes distributed. That's why there is always better than a team. As you know, a teamwork makes people, anybody can be a leader. That's called as a distributed leader. Then the fourth belief, before I tell how we can be doing, the fourth belief of successful leaders, they say that the fourth belief is the leaders believe that people can be aligned to results by working with their neurological drivers. And believe me, neurological drivers are so powerful. Whoever has understood that neurological driver, they have made people to, turn around their lives, or people to turn around results. So I'm taking the slide out for some time. I will be talking to you for some time. So if some of you choose, you can unmute your camera and you can come in the camera and you can talk to me. Otherwise, you can put in the chat window. I have a question to all of you. How many of you have seen a pack of cigarettes? So a packet of cigarettes, how many of you have ever seen? None of you? Some yes,
yes,
some
sir,
no.
we have seen that.
You have seen that? And if you have seen that, can you tell me what is written in the packet of cigarette?
Yeah, and like in bold words, there is written, smoking cigarette is injurious to health.
Wow, I love this, Professor Arti. And I see also Professor Bijay and Rosen, smoking causes cancer. So there are many words are written or phrases are written. One is smoking causes cancer, smoking is injurious to health, and smoking kills, right? Now tell me, when this is written on the packet, who does not understand the meaning of this? So if it is written, smoking is injurious, it causes death, all of us, we understand that. Still, people smoke, whoever loves smoking, right? That means psychological awareness does not carry meaning if there is a strong neurological driver in the head. And when a person sees that it is written, still the person does it, there is something else which is driving, because the person understands, if I take this, I will be dying. Still the person, this understanding does not allow the person to limit of not doing it. So that is why some images are also shown. I agree with you, Professor. And that is why what happens when it is said that, here, Dr. Bernali, so it is whenever it is told, it is injurious. I look at it, but I don't stop. That means what they are doing, there is something which is called as a neurological driver, and always neurological driver is powerful than psychological awareness. Leaders who have understood this, who have used this, they have made people to bring great results. One of the example which you might have heard many times by now, let me still love to cite that because I don't know if I like that person or not, but definitely I like the leadership role. And you must be knowing about Mahatma Gandhi. What he told. He told people, go and be bitten. So what happens? People, they were being bitten by public. Okay, when they are bitten, and then one group of people, they fell down. The other group of people, they are ready to be bitten and they have to take care of those. If I ask someone, please give me a glass of water, he will tell, why should I do that? You do it by your own way. And here there is a person, he says, don't fear, go and fight. And with without attacking the other, whoever is the opposition is there. And people are ready to do that. Imagine what kind of a neurological driver he might have created in the head, that people, they're aware that we are going to be bitten, still it doesn't matter. When you see people who are in the borders, what kind of a neurological driver they have created for themselves. And you look for any person who has worked even with in the presence of threat, who has not cared threat, who has not cared any of the limitations. I have seen those many of those people who have become hero from zero, from nowhere, and you will find they have just got a very strong neurological driver. So what we do, one art of influencing that we talk about leaders, is to create that driver in the head. If you can create that driver in the head, you can become a very good leader. That is why what happens in the course syllabus of leadership of organizational behavior with some of the leading universities, this aspect of neurological driver, neuro-linguistic communication part is becoming a part of it, because just by talking, a process that doesn't create a driver may not help. That is why what happens, what we're talking about, that's what I'm talking about, Professor Simanta. You have written that, when they talk about that image, that imprint. So neurological driver is actually an imprint. And that imprint, there is a technique to do that. Yeah, I'm the best, better than the rest driver. So that is, the image that can be created. And once that image is created, that image works like a driver. So if you can connect that image to what the person is going to get, that that is how it works. In sales, sometimes we work it. You will find in sales, what we do, we use two types of pricing policies. One is called as the value for money. So you will find there are some people who come for a 20,000 mobile phone, and they will completely inquire, if I'm paying 20,000, what am I going to get the values? But the second pricing approach sometimes we run, which is called as the money for value. Many companies, they say, my mobile phone is not 20,000 rupees, it is 1 lakh rupees. And when you come, you see by paying 1 lakh rupees, what you can actually get. So they talk about money for value approach. So when they talk about money for value approach, what they do, they promote their product in such a way that they create that neurological driver, so that people with an awareness, it is high price, it is costly, utility may not be for such a long time, still the driver becomes powerful. So that's why today, when we communicate, we create this aspect of neurological communication, and that makes people to go for the driver. So therefore, the four aspects we discussed till now are leaders, the influence, second. Yes, Professor Garbita, you were saying something.
Sir, I was just asking, this neurological programming can simply be said as our belief system, what we believe.
Wow, very good. This is simply be told us creating a process of believing something, right? And even
Yes, sir.
belief and values together, because sometimes beliefs and values, if not aligned, it may not give us. So you are absolutely right, Professor Garbita. And that's
Thank you,
what,
sir.
so nice of you. So we say what brain prefers and how it works. So now the first four principles we learned, the first four principles we discuss are: leaders believe that the brain can be aligned, the results can be aligned. Second, they believe that it is an art of influence. Third is potential, the new possibility is the new potential. And fourth is they should not be dealers, rather they are leaders. Now let us look at the four principles, how brain prefers to work. I think there is something on the chart window. I'm just seeing. Okay. Okay, I'm not able to access that. Anyways, I will be coming back to, or maybe a professor, you can help me out.
Yes, Professor Fernandez, he has mentioned about self-assertiveness and belief.
Wow. Yes.
And belief. And I find Fernandez, I'm better than the rest driver, he's saying.
Wow. So I like this point. He has mentioned I'm better than the rest drivers. Okay. So that's
Yes,
what
let
it,
us just for a small interruption. Seeing at the enthusiastic of few of those chat members, those are mentioning, I'm launching a poll for them as to how do they rate themselves when it comes to themselves. So if they can score themselves from 0 to 5 for being how clear they are about the impact of enlightenment between the various levels of work they carry on in their day-to-day life. So I think this will give a kind of approach so how they can relate with what they are claiming.
wow. I'm seeing the response is very, very encouraging. Huh?
May I ask a question, sir?
Yes, yes, please.
Uh, Actually, sir, what I feel is that a human being is actually controlled by many neuro-linguistic power. Sometimes one overpowers the other at certain circumstances. At certain circumstances, the other linguistic or neuro-linguistic factor may be more prominent. So it actually depends upon the various situations and practical in practicality rather than this bookish things good goody things doesn't exist in the real world. If my boss is very means you can say autocratic way of controlling things, I would just give up at that moment of time and take his order. But if he is very compassionate enough to understand the thing and why the things are good or bad, then things may be different. So the neurolinguistic things actually it is depending upon the environment also, as well as that various factors overpower one another time to time. But I think maybe I am incorrect. Please guide. Thank you.
Wow, I love this. And whatever you spoke is my last slide. Okay. My last slide talks about there is something called neurological levels, and I'm quite impressed with the polling results also, which are coming up here. So I see that. So that talks about there are 6 levels that actually, when we say no, it depends on the situation. Many things we talk about that. It depends on the context. Then what is that situation? What is it on depend on? There are actually 6 things to that. And interestingly, there is a sequence or there is a hierarchy. We are also going to discuss that. And I'm very happy, Professor, that you asked this question, because I'm maybe my complete talk will be complete with that slide. So I'm very happy that you did this.
Sir,
Okay.
I
Yes.
also have a concern. Can I speak?
Please, please.
Yeah, sir. Today morning, I just saw a pattern.
Mhm.
I have seen a person who is very compassionate and helping others, but those others, they were not ready to, or rather, in that even from the power of authority, the person is compassionate, but these people they are taking the person for granted and even raise the voice and not listening. So even that kind of scenes also we have seen in life. So how to like come to the terms with such things, even if when you try to empathize with others and others are they have their own patterns and ways of doing things.
Wonderful. I will suggest, I think some of you might be knowing about it very well. Still, I'm suggesting some reading for you. I think you can love this reading, and this is really going to help you out. And before that, I'm seeing this poll result. 60% of you have given 4, and about 15%, so more than 75%. I mean, 3 is somewhere. So I think around 100% people they believe on whatever has been created the context. So I'm very happy with that. So there is something I'm suggesting you. Please do read this if you get chance to anyone anytime. What Milton linguistics or Milton language pattern it does, it makes people to come to agreement quickly. And to address this question, I think this was asked by Professor Arti, I think, that talks about when you become compassionate, the other person takes you for granted. Because what happens when you communicate with somebody, we communicate from 2 angles, from our position and from the statement. most of the time the statement it actually what takes over the position. If this happens, then maybe the person will take advantage of us. That is why there is a very nice way which is called Milton linguistics, and if you use Milton linguistics, then people definitely will be with you agreement in often or many of the situation. I will be talking about Milton linguistics little later, maybe one or two example. Although today, it is not a part of my presentation, still this interesting question has come up. I will just give you one or two ways how it works, Milton linguistics. And you will find if you practice Milton linguistics, you will become a magician in your communication. It is such a powerful process. And I'm definitely going to talk about it, maybe just a glimpse of it. And then if you want, you can learn more about it. So now, since we understood the four principles leaders believe, let us see how your brain works and how it prefers to do. So this is we are talking about neuro-linguistic programming. So for some of you who are first time or who just want more information on neuro-linguistic programming, let me tell you, neuro-linguistic programming is the science of creating mental imprints. Anything that we do, we actually create a mental imprint in an individual that drives actions for outcomes. So if that mental imprint becomes so strong that the person cannot resist, the person will do that act to get the result. And all leaders you talk about, you name a leader to whom you can claim that he's successful, you can watch his videos. I may tell you some certain linguistic patterns, including any of the spiritual leaders you like. Listen to their linguistics pattern. There are a lot of Milton linguistic patterns are hidden. That is why when people, they listen to them, they just get, yes, I have to do this, it's become so powerful a process. And it is not about English grammar at all. It is not about the grammar. It is about what impact you can create on the head of the people. So that is why it says these leaders, they can create an imprint in your head. That is why it is called linguistics programming. Programming is that imprint part. So neuro-linguistic programming is the science of creating mental imprints that drives actions for outcome by using simple human communication. And there is a way. And neuro-linguistic leadership is the science of creating mental imprints that drives people to take actions for outcome. So here it drives people to take action for outcome by using simple human communication. Let us understand how the brain works, okay? One of the rule of brain is brain deletes, distorts, generalized external experience to create a mental imprint of reality. So here I'm going to talk to you. So I'm showing you a slide, I will be asking you. So in this process, I'm just going to tell you that if you look at this complete picture, what do you see here? What do you see here in this picture, if you look at it? Yeah, you can either talk to me or can write.
Leaves.
Leaves. So can you write it down on the? Okay, you have seen leaves. Okay, some other participants.
Patterns, some patterns, sir.
Some pattern of leaves. Too many colors, leaves, some patterns.
Patterns of which is repeated. Okay,
which is repeated, leaves and procs. So that's why if you look at here, if you look at some of
green
you
and
have seen
some dry leaves.
some dry leaves.
Diversity. I can see diversity.
You can see diversity. Now can you see something? I have highlighted certain things.
Frog.
Can you see that?
Yeah, frog is there.
Frog is.
So you can see a frog, right? So you can see a frog, some pattern. And I think Professor has written already, he has seen the frog earlier. So what it does when you have seen this, so what is there? Our brain, what it does, it deletes information. When there are so many things in the in the picture, there are certain informations we have not captured, we have not taken it, because brain doesn't have the power to carry all the information. Brain is not designed that way. So that is why, remember, brain always deletes information. And when you can bring an information to the awareness of person, then the person can see that information. So then the person says, wow, this is nice. And I am being seeing how many patterns are coming up now. Professor Fernandez has written cobwebs. Even Professor Fernandez can see certain cobwebs, which may be, just if you look at initially, you may not have observed. That is why one of the rule is that brain wow, Buddha, tower, you are seeing many things now. So what happens, remember, one of the rule of brain is brain deletes information. Brain does not take all the information. And that's why a leader communicates in a way that pertinent informations are not to be deleted. That is how the second rule of my 4 into 4 is how brain works and how you are going to deal with that. Remember, brain deletes information. Let me do a simple exercise to reinforce the fact that how brain deletes information. So what you got to do, you got to just look around your room like this, and you got to look around completely and got to write down a number. Network and wiring. Yes, Professor Sikta Singh, I saw there were network and wirings were there. So, friends, what I want to tell you is that just look around your room like this and write in the chat window, or you can talk to me, how many things you see which are there in your room which have the color white. Just tell me how many things are there which are of the color white. Just write it down. I think Professor Fernandez has written 21. Is it this answer or? Okay, Professor Ashok has written 2. Okay. And then I see 2, 3, 4, Satyaprakash ji, 3, oh, Dr. Farah 9, wallpapers 10, Art Professor Aarti 10, Susma 10, Professor Aarti 7. Good. So now what you got to do, you will do it genuinely. Huh? You are just going to fix the eyes here. You're not going to look around the room once again. Okay. You're not going to, wow, Professor. Okay. You're not going to look around the room once again. Huh? You're just going to fix your eyes on the screen. And now you got to tell me, when you looked around for the room items which are in white, how many things were there which has a tinge of color of black? So tell me how many items you saw when you actually look at the white things, how many items were there which were in white? Now, without looking around, just write down the number. Let me now start. Okay, Professor Rosen 3, Professor Bibu 2, 1, 1, 3, 1, 3, 3, 6. Professor Garbita has in 6. Okay, black 3. Okay, Professor Susma 3. Good. Now, what happens to confirm whatever number you wrote, whether it is 3, 4, 6, look around the room once again and you see, is it more than that? Or is it less than that? Or is it the same number? If now when you look around the room and see how many things are in black, if you get a different number, just write down that different number. I mean, whatever you see. Okay, Professor has written, I didn't see that. It is more than what he was seen, isn't it? So no, more than that. That means what the brain does. Yes, I love this, answers. Wonderful. So Professor Garbita has seen 6, 9. This is Padma more. So more than 3. You know what happened? 2 to 4. Okay. Whatever your brain looked at, when it looked at for white, it deleted many information which are on black and all. If I say now, tell me how many things are in red, you will find again the brain will have another number. That is why what the brain does. Brain does not select all information. It only selects very few information. And you know what? You will be surprised to know that every moment we are being presented with more than 2 million bits of information. And you know how our brain is wired? Our brain is wired to catch 134, only 134 out of 2 million. It's not even 1%. And to understand this 134, what is 134 bytes? There is a rule which has been designed by somebody called as George Miller. They say this is George Miller's number. The number is called as 7 plus and minus 2. So this is called as George Miller's number. Miller's number. You can just write down this number, and sometimes you can browse to understand what is George Miller's number. So my dear friend, what happens? Brain does not carry or does not take all the information which is being presented. That is why what good leaders they do, they reinforce that information which they need that people should remember. And second, what they do, they break their communication into chunks of 7 plus minus 2. That means into 5 to 9, chunks. That means if they prepare a PowerPoint presentation, you will never see there are more than 9 rows in the presentation. If they prepare a PowerPoint presentation, there will be, might be about 5 to 9 rows. If they write something on a sentence, there has to be a punctuation with in a group of 5 to 9 words, because that is how brain can take. And if you use the way brain operates, you can be the most successful person in the globe. Many of us, we work against the brain operates. That is why we are not successful. So good leaders, what they do, are successful leaders, they understand this neurological programming of people, and they communicate so that the way brain operates, information is being taken. That is why first information we learned that brain deletes. Now I'm going to show you a video, and please watch this video completely and see if you get some new information. If you have seen this video earlier, that's a different story. If you have not seen it, just see this and check if some learning happens here. And Dr. Sikta, I will just run it for a moment. You will tell me if the streaming is okay. I mean, the audio video is audible or not.
Sure, sir.
Is it audible, Dr.
Yes,
Sikta?
it's audible.
Okay, please watch this video.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away.
Sorry, madam.
It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
Action.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
So you must have seen, this is all about, Professor Sikta, this session is up to?
Sir, it's up to 1:30.
Okay, thank you very much. So you must have seen what happens. There are information present with us in front of us. Our brain does not capture, I mean, the conscious part does not capture. Everything is stored in the unconscious part of the brain. The conscious brain does not capture information. It is stored in the unconscious brain. When it is required, you can look back and bring this information. And neuro-linguistic leadership is about what is right for the context. If the person is missing that information in a team, what happens? There are 10 people, you give a task, 5 will say, we will do that, 3 will back up. When they back out, what it exactly happens, they do not see what others are saying. That is why what we do, we again reinforce the communication to let people see what others saw, so that they can form a team and they can go ahead. That is why what it is actually being done. Thank you, Professor. So what it is actually being done, this process is designed in a way that you know what people will delete, and then you reinforce that so that those information will not be deleted. And if the information is not be deleted, then the information can be created to a mental imprint, and it is done. So that's all. The second, we discuss about one principle, it deletes. Now there is another task for you I'm going to give you. You know what happens? The second rule is that if mind can delete, there is another rule for brain. The rule that says that brain is a quantum machine. So if brain deletes information, there is an advantage with your brain. The way they work is it is a quantum machine. And let me explain you what is a quantum machine. Before that, let me take the screen out for some time and talk to you. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a complete slide. And this slide is full of number 9. If you look at this slide, you will find this slide is full of number 9. And what I want in this conglomeration of number 9, in the complete set of number 9, there is only one letter, which is number 8. So if it is filled up number 9, you will get only one letter is there, which is called as one number, which is called a number 8. What you got to do, you got to quickly spot where does this number 8 exist in the collection of 9. And let me see who can do that. So as soon as you do that, right down in the chart window, you spotted it, okay? So in the collection of number 9, I'm just presenting that slide to you. In the collection of number 9, you got to tell me which slide has got number 8. And you got to quickly spot it, okay? Wait. Yes, this is the screen. As soon as you spot it, just write down, yes, 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 yes.
Yes, I did that. It's on the fourth.
Yes, sir, in the fourth row, sir. Last number.
Amazing. You know what happened? I love this group, yeah. How long did I show? Not even 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And you immediately told, yes, I spotted it. Last, those they could not spot. This is for you once again.
We were just waiting for it to just publish it. So we were just like that.
So you are just waiting for it published
Correct,
and you bang on it, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
That's
And
so
we
known.
find it out, yes.
So Professor Vinita, so wonderful, So what we talk about, if you look at it in this whole, process, in the whole chart, if you find like, we talk about something called as the number 8. Here is that number 8. And I'm just taking the slide out now for all of you to talk. You might have seen, I'm very happy this group is really smart enough. Professor Asa, 4th row, Anjali, 4th row. How do you pronounce Sound? How do you pronounce this name? Mr. Ghosh, Professor Ghosh. Okay. So, look for complete screen, spotted, Deepak, well, females, outpass the males. Wow. Sure, Professor Deepak has a good observation. So, you know what happened? You must have seen when all the numbers were in 9, they wanted to spot 8. You might have seen you have gone through a process. The process is not like you actually scan through all the numbers. First row, second row, third row. The process is not like that. The process is your eye only looked for 8. It zoom, zoom, zoom 8. It did not actually go through a complete sequence because your mind is a quantum machine. If there is a problem, there is a solution. If you know the problem, you also know the solution. And this path can be triggered by the leader. So what leader does, leader utilizes this aspect that human brain is a quantum machine. That is why in neuro-linguistic programming, we have a language pattern called as quantum linguistics. So this is called as quantum linguistics. So when you learn about the tricks of quantum linguistics, whatever problem a person says it's my problem, 10 minutes, the person will tell this is my solution. Because what you are doing, quantum means you are taking the person, quantum means micro. You are taking the person out of the problem zone to the no problem zone. If the person is in the problem zone, the team is given a task. The team says, our team cannot do, this is very, we don't have time, If you can take this problem zone per team out of the problem zone, put in the solution zone, they will say, hey, our team can do it the best. So that's why there is a linguistic pattern. I told you one linguistic pattern called Milton linguistics, second is called quantum linguistics. This linguistic pattern together can create magic in your communication pattern. So that's what neuro-linguistic leadership is all about. And believe me, all strong leaders, they know this pattern and they use linguistic. I will be telling you certain linguistics, you will see how it goes. Third thing, the third rule we talk about is brain reflects what is navigated. So you might have, I'm going to show you another exercise. You might have done it. So I'm taking the screen out for a moment. I'm going to show you an exercise. You might have done it. Even if you have, those that have done it, you need not to do. If you have not done it, just do this. And you got to talk to me for this exercise as well. So you just got to write it down. So you got to talk to me for this exercise. And either you can talk or you can put in the chat window, that is okay with me. And you got to be quicker while answering these things, okay? You got to be quick enough while answering. So you got to tell me, I'm going to show you a picture. You got to tell me, what do you see here? So I'm just presenting this picture to you, and you got to tell me what do you see here in this picture. Quick enough, and tell me what do you see here. 3 symmetries, wow. First rewind, wow. Diagram, anything pencils, anything pentagon, very good. Now can you see a K here? Can you see a K here? Can I say some yes from you? K, can you see a K here? If you have seen the K here, now I'm going to show you something, and you got to tell me quickly, what are you seeing now? If you have seen the K here, in pentagon, and along with the pentagon, if you have seen the K here, now tell me what do you see now? H, very good. Wow. You see what happened? All of you told H, you did not say pillars, right? You did not say you saw pillars. Rather, you told me H. I'm taking the screen out. So when I did show you K, after that I presented the picture. So initially what happens when I presented the picture, you saw a pattern, you saw pentagons, you saw something, geometric diagrams, something like that. I just told you, can you see a K? Once you told yes, then I show you another geometric pattern, and you did not focus on the pillar. You told you are seeing an H. Why? Because I navigated your brain. I navigated your brain from seeing a pattern of picture to letters. So when I presented the other picture, your brain actually focused on the letters. This is what great leaders they do. So they neurologically program the mind of the followers to see what the leaders shows them. And that means you just get the other information not relevant over there. Is it like mind training or brain training? It is more than that. Mind training and brain training is a very small part of it. It is just more than that. It says that the way your brain operates. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about this little later. So you know what it does. So it says that the way the brain operates. And the fourth point that we are going to talk about is, which is called as, fourth point is, brain performs best when steps are easier. Sometimes, I'm taking the slide out, some leaders, they will give you a high target, and individuals love high target. And what they do, they must also make the steps difficult. Believe me, mind has the principle to work. It says the principle of least effort. If you need to put up loads of effort to get something, after few or after some of your effort, mind will take you out from the journey. So because mind loves to work with a principle called as the principle of least effort. If you are working with least effort, then you will be achieving great results. So therefore, what it does, we understand brain performs best when the steps are easier. So what does the great leaders they do? The great leaders they use this principle, and what they do, they say, when you want someone to achieve something, maybe the target is very high, and make the ways, the steps easier. If you are making the steps difficult, then what happens? The person will get burnout, and if the person gets burnout or boss us rust out, the person cannot achieve. The person will not stay in the company for longer time. That is why what happens when you are teaching. Yeah, so this is Dr. Sailaja has written, which is called a stress. So stress will be created. That is why what we're talking about when we are preparing people for a great leadership. I tell you, since I'm a coach, there was a person who was in Mumbai. He was of age 27 age group, and he was heading for a maintenance company, petroleum maintenance company. He was heading. There is a positive point which is there on the chart window called eustress, and he was heading the India operations, and he is having a phenomenal target, phenomenal performance. He is doing very good. Seeing at his performance appraisal, what the company did, the company made him head for another 2 countries along with India. You will not believe he got an appraisal performance promotion later. Then he became head of 3 countries together. Young guy, 27 years. He went into tremendous stress. When this person he came to me for his executive coaching, and we discussed it out. I told, do you want to quit the job? You can quit the job, or you want to continue. He told, Dr. Das, I want to do this job. I don't know how to do because I'm feeling stressful, restless. I cannot do. What we did, we only did one thing. the steps that he had planned in head to manage 3 countries together, we just brought it to his control. That's it. And this person saw the fruits. And this all happens with communication, I tell you. That is why what happens. If you understand these tidbits, this 9.7, you apply it, it just goes a big time with an individual and the person can really change. And then the fourth rule that we speak about that, now let us understand more on linguistics, how language works. So I told 4 of leadership behavior, 4 how brain operates, now 4 how linguistics work, the how language works, okay? Now, before I go for this linguistics, let me give you, or let me ask you something, do in the chart window. Can you write in the chart window, today is the best day? Can you write in the chart window, today is the best day? Let me see. Wow. Wow. I love this, you know. So generally what happens, okay, thank you. Generally what happens, if I tell you something, can you do this? The answer has to be either yes or no. And what you did not answer it in yes or no way. Rather, what you did, you did the action. So because if I would have told you, write, today is the best day, many of you might not have written. But what I did, I told, can you write, today is the best day? So what I did, I gave you the same command. I gave you the command, write, today is the best day. I just added a prefix called, can you write, today is the best day? What happens? You took my command. You did not realize that I have given you a command. Milton linguistic is the language pattern exactly like that. There are more than 20 patterns are designed. In each pattern, you give a command, but the person does not realize that there is a command. So isn't it very beautiful? Isn't it? So that's how it works.
Our language, if I look into the behavioral science perspective, is this the nudge effect? So we try to reinforce someone without their realization even. So
Absolutely.
it's a kind of a reinforcement, which usually in workforce.
This is wonderful, madam. And this is reinforced, isn't it? So you must have seen, yeah, there I'm seeing certain words. Professor Fernandez writing self-hypnosis. And I saw when I asked earlier, this is something interesting, isn't it? You know what happened? When I told you, isn't it? All of you wrote yes, 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 yes. You did not write no, 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 no. Because isn't it is a tag question. Tag question is a Milton linguistic pattern. When you want to seek confirmation, you give a command, or isn't it, you will see the magic. People will confirm. They will not tell you, say, isn't it? They will not tell no. You know, that's why you will say, some people, they communicate, kal se rule change ho gaya, ha ya na. You will find people will tell ha, ha, ha. People will communicate to that. So like that, you know, most of the political leaders, you look at any leader who is a mass mover, they use Milton linguistic, whether he is a spiritual leader or anyone. You just observe this linguistic. It's a leading question. Wonderful. So you know what happens? Since it is leading, it will be actually getting confirmation. So the design of this pattern, linguistic pattern, is, I agree with Professor Situn, you know, it conditions, it programs the brain towards affirmation. I give you a beautiful example. I don't know how many of you have ever, I think all of you might have communicated. Sometimes you get a call from a call center. You'll find all the call center linguistics are not trained linguistics. There are certain call center, their complete language pattern is trained. And beauty is that we write language pattern for many call centers also. Okay, so I have created linguistics for political leader, for a lot of people, you know. We create this linguistics, and when this linguistic is being done, it takes a lot of affirmation in the journey, you know. People remain in the positive realm, and when people are in the positive realm, they can actually create something bigger in life, because it goes beyond your calculated potential. So that's what we do. You will find sometimes you get call from some call center. Say, so what the call center they do? They get your data. Say I'm getting about Professor Sikta Singh. Suppose I have the data of Professor Sikta Singh. What are the data I do have? Professor Dr. Sikta Singh. Madam, you are from Bhubaneswar. and madam is working in KIT School of Management. I have only this data, and I'm a call center. So how I'm going to talk and say, am I talking to Dr. Sikta Singh? What will be your answer, ma'am? What will be your answer?
First of all, I would be interested in who you are.
I gave my introduction, everything. Yeah. I say I'm Mangesh from Falana place. Then I say, am I talking to Professor Dr. Sikta Singh? What will be your answer?
Yes.
Yes. Are you with KIT, professor in whatever is that in KIT? What will be your answer? Yes. Are you in Bhubaneswar? What will be your answer? Yes. Then they say, ma'am, I will just take 2 minutes from you. You will find mostly you see what Professor Sikta Singh is doing. Yes. Generally, people they do not say no, because that is a pattern of linguistic which is called as, I'm just writing it here, which is called as yes set. If you take a person into yes set, that means 3-4 questions, the answer of which will be yes. Then you put your proposition, you will find it will be yes. So what generally we do in the leadership game, when we find a person says that, I don't think I can fight this difficulty. So the team was working, they say, I think the whole team is bullying on me. I don't think I can deal with the bullying of the team. Then you know how we use this linguistic pattern. He says, the team is bullying me, I cannot do that. We say, oh, so you have decided to become bigger in life, right? The answer will be yes. And you want to do something new, right? The answer is yes. So we actually elicit 3-4 yes, yes, yes answers. Then we say, and you also now are deciding that if you get a way out, then you can actually not focus on the bullying, rather the potential you have got, isn't it? So yes, then the person will tell yes. Once the person comes to an agreement, what the person does, the person goes from the effect side to the cause side. The person says, yes, I am going to do something. Once the person agrees, then you can create an imprint and the person will go towards it. That is why linguistic is so powerful. In my life, since I'm a coach, any person who comes with a thing that my life is not working, we actually convert them to cause side from effect side by using linguistics. And once you bring out this linguistics, you will see a lot of positive.
I would request all those participants to mute themselves. I'm muting all. So you can unmute yourself. I have muted also.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we'll have the question answer at the last 15-10 minutes.
Yeah, I will be taking another 10-15 minutes, then maybe we will go for question answer. So let's understand more on linguistics. So how it happens, point number 1, understand. When we talk about something, be aware of the context words can create. There are words which can create many contexts. And before I tell about what words can create context, let me do again a small exercise with you. You know what you got to do? And you got to also communicate with me in this exercise. Just remember, whatever I am asking you to do, only do that. Whatever I'm asking you not to do, please do not do that. Is the rule clear to you? Can I see some yes in the chat window? Wow, 1 yes, 2 yes, 3 yes, 4 yes, 5 yes. So 5 is a pattern, 6 is a pattern. Very good. So the rule is clear. Whatever I'm asking you to do, only you are going to do that. Whatever I'm not asking you to do, do not do that. It's a very simple rule. So what you can do, all of you, close your eyes. Just close your eyes. Yes, good. You have closed it. Now, if you have closed your eyes, in your head, please do not see the picture of a monkey. Please do not see the picture of a monkey. Please do not see that monkey has a tail. Now, please do not see that the monkey is waving its tail. Okay. Now tell me, what did you see? Is there anybody who saw the, okay, you can open your eyes. Is there anybody who saw the image of a monkey or the tail or waving of the tail? We all saw that. Money, wow, saw what you said. No sooner,
With my
yes, yes,
eyes
yes.
open also, I saw all description which you said, because my brain started
That's seeing that.
seeing that.
Wow. Therefore, monkey with a waving tail. Wow. That's why what we say, words can create context. Therefore, in communication, we are always careful about these three words. We are always careful about these three words. One is called not, second is try, third is called but. Because I'm taking the slide out, because what happens, I saw everything or not to see. Yeah. That's why what happens. I tell you how leadership communication goes with this. If I tell you not, and then I bring something, I bring it to your existence. In your head, I bring it to your existence. After I bring it to your existence, if I create a motivation, you will definitely go and do that. That is why most of the time you must have seen with children, when you say, do not touch that, you bring that into existence and they will go to do that. If that is motivating. If that is not motivating, they may not do it. So individuals are just wired like that. The second word we are careful about is try. Because try is a permission to fail. When you say, I will try to do it, yeah, Professor Garbita, I agree with you. So when you say, I will try to do it, so this, yes, I agree with that. This is linked cognitive processes. We can stop. That's what I'm telling. It cannot be stopped. It is programmed. So try is something which is called as permission to fail. If I ask you that, if you tell me, say, I'm suppose holding this, this is in my hand, this bottle, and you ask me, try to lift it, either I will lift it or I will not lift it. I cannot try, Try is called as a permission to fail. So if you tell your people, try to achieve your target, many of them will not do, because indirectly you are giving them a permission to fail, not to see, wow. So, like that it happens. So try is a permission to fail. Third word is called but. Because what this word, but it does, this word, what it does, when we use this word called but, what it does cognitively, it actually deletes the essence of what you have told before. Suppose I tell you, you all participants are very knowledgeable, but, so what happens? I'm actually negating this knowledgeable, whatever I told about you. That is why when leaders, they appreciate, after appreciating, they do not use the word but, because it negates. So when is it being used? Is it being used when the follower mentions about incompetency? If the follower says, I have done it many times, I could not be successful, the leader then says, you did it. So the follower says, I did it 10 times, I could not be successful. The leader says, you did it 10 times and you could not be successful, but there is an 11th time you can work. So what the leader did, the leader deleted the impact of that, doing it for 10 times, not becoming successful. That is why when you talk about the word called but, it actually creates a different context in the head of the person, the way we want the context to be utilized. Therefore, what I do, the second linguistic is, eyes are wired to brain during communication. Eyes are actually wired to brain. I will give you a very, very wonderful example you can understand. For this, maybe I will seek one or two to volunteer. Can one participant from amongst you volunteer to come online? And then you can really, really understand this exercise very well. Can I request one of the participants to be online? Yes, some of you can come online. Okay, I can see Dr. Farah Khan is online. So, Dr. Farah Khan, would you participate? No? Okay. So can I request someone else just to come online and participate here? Okay, I can see Madam Shraddha is here. Namaskar, Madam. She's a very good, professor. I know her very time. And Madam is a NLP trained. So I will not be doing this with Madam because she knows the process. She is already NLP trained. I know it. Maybe someone who is not NLP trained, I would like to do this. Okay. So Dr. Farah Khan, will you participate and sing a yes, 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 or maybe Professor Aarti Agarwal is here. Let us do it with Professor Aarti Agarwal. And what I'm going to do, why can't I take Professor Aarti on spotlight?
Yeah.
Ma'am, can you?
Yes, I'm doing it.
Just take her on to spotlight.
Yeah.
Okay. Is she on spotlight? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I think yeah, I have taken you on spotlight. And can you, okay. What you got to do, all of you, please observe Professor Aarti, and you will find when I'm communicating with Professor Aarti, I will be asking her, okay, can we unmute Professor Aarti?
Sure.
Okay. So you will be seeing, interestingly, I will be asking 2 to
Professor Aarti, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have done that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. So are you ready for the activity, Professor Aarti? So friends,
Yes.
what I'm going to do, I'll be asking certain questions to Professor Aarti. You will find if Professor Aarti genuinely wants to answer this question, for some of the questions, her eyes will go left. For some of the questions, her eyes will go right. Or for some of the questions, the eyes will not move at all. The eyes will just remain like that. And you will just observe, if she answers this genuinely, she cannot keep the eyes like this, straight and answer. No. You will find her eyes are bound to move because eyes are wired to thoughts. And look at her eyes, all of you. Just observe her. And Professor Aarti, what you got to genuinely give me answers, huh?
Sure, sir.
Please describe in detail the color combination of your childhood bedroom. Could you see what happened to the eyes? Could you see where the eyes are going? Okay, that is okay.
My
now,
childhood bedroom, it was like blue in color.
Wow.
With a white window.
Wow.
Which was netted.
Wow.
And, a double bed was there.
Okay.
For me and my brother and sister.
Good. You must have seen she answered everything right, and her eyes just did not remain straight, right? Eyes went up. Now, another question for you. In your head, can you make an addition of 9,028 plus 5,059? You see, you must have seen she has closed the eyes. Initially, her eyes went right up.
9.
If you have noted that, you will find her head is little inclined towards right up. Okay, I will tell you the meaning of that.
Uh, 1400.
Okay, 14,000 some number it will be there, right?
14,070, 700.
Wow.
Okay,
yes.
I just forgot 59.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Now please look at me. And now you look, what happens? Please tell your name, Professor Aarti.
Aarti Agarwal.
You might have seen now the eyes did not move. Okay. So these are the 3 ways you have observed. Give Professor Aarti a big hand, all of you. This is from me, Professor Aarti, to you. So give her a big hand and you see what happened. Okay. So you can have seen what happened. So you might have seen, generally, there are 2 types of individual, normal organized, reverse organized. In general, many of us are normally organized. People who are normal organized, their memory, remains in the left part of the brain. People who are normally organized, the memory is on the left part of the brain. The creativity, they create information on the right part of the brain. And the information which is in the top of the mind, awareness, so we call TOMA, is just in the center. That's why when eyes access information, you can see when a person is accessing past, the eyes generally goes left. And there is further, categorization there. We're not discussing that. Just we are looking at it. When eyes goes that, it goes left. And when eye creates information, head creates information, eyes goes right. When I told, can you make addition of this to number? It is not existing. It is being created. Eyes go right. And when the person says something which is in the TOMA, it goes straight. So what we talk, when we talk to leader, people, and we go for the leadership communication, and we use this, what we observe, when a person is sharing me a problem that the person says, I'm unable to take this step, whether the person is accessing it from a structured memory or the person is creating that problem then and there. So moving on that, I can read about what is the neurological programming that is being thrown by the participants or by the followers, and we can actually work on that. And then I say the third one is called a specific pattern of communication enhances memory. So generally, what happens, and this is the last exercise I'm going to do quickly because I'm also keeping the track of the timing. Maybe another 4 minutes, then we can take up certain questions. So what I'm going to do for all of you, I'm going to read aloud certain words, and you are not going to write these words anywhere, and you got to tell me what are the words I'm reading or I'm telling you, okay? And listen to me carefully. These words are dream, sleep, night, mattress, snooze, seat, nod, tired, night, artichoke, insomnia, blanket, night, alarm, nap, snow, pillow. So you might have heard about the words actually I spoke now when I spoke to you just before sometimes. Now let us check, let us cross check, okay? Show, what are the words you saw it? And I think in the chart window, I am unable to access anyways, not an issue. Professor will be helping me. Did you hear the word called dream?
Yeah, Garvita Joshi has mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you saw, yeah, now I can see. Yes, dream. So because you can tell, because it is the first word, which is called the primacy effect. Something that is being spoken at the beginning can be remembered. Did we hear the word called pillow?
Yes, sir.
So I can see because you can remember pillow because it was the last word called as. Did you hear the word called artichoke?
Does not remember, sir.
Does not remember. Anyone else who remembers artichoke? Some yes, some no.
Yes, yes, yes. Remember, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Artichoke, yes.
Because it was a
All
surprise
related
effect.
I remembered choke only.
You remember choke only, okay. So
I
that was
remembered artichoke.
okay, artichoke. So because this is a surprise effect, so that is being remembered. Did you recall the word called night?
Sir, you repeated it 3 times, I think.
Yes, that's why you remember night. It is called repetition
Yes, sir.
effect.
Yes, sir.
And did you hear the word called bed? Yes, no, no, yes.
No.
No?
No, sir.
No,
No, sir.
no.
No, yes?
Yes.
No, no,
Yes.
no.
How many yes? Whether you deleted or kept it, the information with you? Any yes?
No, it was mattress rather.
It was mattress? Okay. If bed comes to your head, it is called as a false memory effect. If at all some of you hear bed, it is a false memory effect. So what happens, brain is designed that way. If somebody is completely heard it and remembered, counted the numbers, generally you may not create a false memory. Otherwise,
It could
it
be
is
associated memory also.
Yes, it is an associated memory and a false memory. That is why what we do. When leaders, they communicate, and they give an instruction or they give a direction, after communication, they check for false memories. They say, okay, can you tell what you are going to do? If you repeat it, the false memory effect will be understood and you know what people they're going to, how they're going to work. And if you want to put something as an impact, you got to tell it at the beginning, primacy and recency, then repetition, and maybe sometimes as a surprise effect. If you use this, you will find important information will be retained in the head, and the people, they will drive their way out for success by following that. And the last point I wanted to drive is called linguistics. So we say communication for action to be linked with neurological levels. Individual has got 6 neurological level. I think professor had asked this question to me earlier. I told the 6 neurological levels are, one is called environment. If a person is not in the right environment, or the person faces challenges of the situation, the person may not achieve result. That is why what a leader does, they find out the, neuro-linguistically what we do, we align the person to the environment. If we find the person is in the wrong environment, we ask the person how you are going to deal with the situation. And we ask the person, if you think you cannot work here, tell me what is that thing, unique thing you are going to do. That means what behavior you are going to take or what actions you are going to take. If the person knows that if there is a challenge, I got to take an extra action or behavior, job is done. If the person says, no, even I do not know action, that means what the person is missing, the person is missing capability. So if you say the person is missing capability, that means he needs a training to learn the behavior he needs for action. That is how leaders, they organize training when only they realize, okay, there is some capability missing for which the behavior cannot be done. Now, if the person has the capability, still the person is not using the capability, that means the person does not believe that this is the thing he or she has to do. So the challenge is with the beliefs and values, That's why when you were talking about beliefs, I told beliefs and values, they stay together. Suppose you have the right belief and the right values, still you do not do. That means you don't like that identity. If I do this task, you will have a separate identity. You may not like that separate identity. That's why you are not doing. And if you have the identity, you like the identity, still you are not able to do a task, that means it is not in your life's mission. So therefore, what leaders they do, they actually align the job an individual wants to do, the vision an individual wants to align with the complete neurological level. And if anywhere you find there is a challenge, work on the level up with the client, with the person. And if you're working on the level up, then things really, really go good. And this is called as the neurological level. So it's identity and mission. This is how it goes. And before I take an example, take the questions, I will give you a last example for today. Once, one director HR of a very leading company, he spoke to me. He wanted to become an entrepreneur. So he's very popular. His name, if I tell also, many of you will be recognizing him, not naming him. So he asked me, he told Mangesh, I want to quit my job and to start business. I told, sir, what business you want to do? He told, I am very much interested to start a business which is called as, a food startup. So because I love eating, so I want to go for something which is called a food startup. Then we discuss, we say, okay, is the environment supportive? He told, yeah, Mumbai, I'm staying in Mumbai. And Mumbai, do you think food will not work? It will work. Sure, environment is okay. He knows what to do. Behavior is okay. Capability is okay. He says, my values and beliefs is that it is really going to work for me. Then everything is okay. Then I asked him, sure, today you have an identity. You are a director HR of this company. So how do you see your identity? He told, Mangesh, I feel so good wherever I go, to any environment, to any meeting, any seminar, any conference, or anywhere, people just cling around me. My position is like this, and I just love this identity. I told, when you quit this job and will come for something which is called as a full startup, what will be your identity? Literally this person sat down for some time. He just saw the image of the identity and he told, Mangesh, I think I cannot do the business. I told, why? What happened? He told, yeah, this is my identity. If I change my identity to a startup, now the people who are running after me, I will go and I will oil them, I will request them, and they will not value me for sometimes of what I'm doing now. And I have to struggle a lot. Maybe I have money to sustain the struggle, but that image may not be going to give me a good feeling at this part of my age. So he was around 52, 53. He told, at this part of my age, I don't want to carry that image. Rather, let me just continue my job and see how beautiful I can get retired and enjoy my life. So, even if the person has everything, but he could not become an entrepreneur because that was not being broken, that identity crisis, or which is at level 5. So, my dear friends,
Sir,
yes.
Sir, I have to say something. So same thing, but the opposite of this happened to me. I was dean with a management institute, but then I realized I want to be an entrepreneur. I just quit it, took up a startup and working for it. And I think I'm feeling more happier working for my own dream instead of, working for somebody else and getting stuck into that 9 to 5 role and something like that. So, I mean, like, it never occurred to me that what people will think, she was dean or now she is nothing. It never happened.
Absolutely, because Professor Aarti, even the journey with me is same. I did quit my job at the age of 42. I was the director of a business school. Then I came to my business. First 2 years is very struggling. I enjoyed that, and now I'm really, really doing good. It's the same thing you went through experience, because our identity, our mission was more powerful than our identity. My mission is something to create that I really integrated with. Similarly, your mission is so powerful, and I can see one person by Professor Fernandez here is he did not the antar-prerana, self-belief, because that mission was missing. And if you can create mission, people will do. That is why Mother Teresa, her missionary, she told, voluntarism is a virtue. They say the people who should come and work for me, they should not work for money. They should work because that voluntary is a value there. They want to serve people. So that is why if you can integrate something with the mission, life is gone. That is why great leaders who has created institutions, whether it is Ratan Tata or anyone you talk about, what they do, they integrate people to each of the neurological levels. That is why you will find recently one of the situation or one of the story of Ratan Tata, which is getting completely viral, is visited to sick employee in Pune to his Pune residence because the neurological levels are being kept intact, and that's how this 4x4x4 principle, if this is being followed, and it is being followed by many, a success may be visible. So maybe since we have 3 minutes, just still quickly, if some questions are there, we can just take it up, because many questions we did it during the talk. So if still some questions are there, we can take it up. And there is something, yes, mission is important, and professor has written what if organization. Okay, any questions if you have, we can take it up before we close the session.
Sir, just want to ask, advertisement is also a way which is doing neuro-linguistic programming. It is also an
Madam,
example.
complete advertisement industry, sales industry, motivational speech industry, these are all leadership organized, these are all driven by neuro-linguistic programming. And there are a lot of advertisements which are only, they talk about Milton linguistic, and it is completely on the NLP process. It is going, anything that is being done with human mind is NLP is the way, whether we are doing right knowingly or unknowingly. And Professor Garvita, very nice that you could correlate this with advertisement industry. Even meditation, we do yoga and meditation, this is a form of NLP. NLP is a very big science. When I learned it in 2016, and today I have completed my learning, what of the subject, now I'm exploring it more. So when you do it, you will exactly understand anything we talk about today, whether law of attraction, whether spiritual practices, whether meditation, whether yoga, these are just one dimension of NLP. NLP is a very big thing. And many people that take a chunk of it, they create something into a product. So that is it. Yes, ADHD is also being helped because you just be in touch with me offline, Professor. I will help you because it will take some more time to explain how ADHD can be helped. I will definitely talk about, because I'm an NLP psychotherapist as well. So we have been trained how to handle that. I will talk about this.
Excuse me, sir, I have a question. It is my observation actually.
Yes.
So, as for example, let us take President Trump. While he delivers any speech, I see that he is actually playing something like he's moving one object from here to table to other table, and then he's speaking. And that is one way. Second, what I see is some of the behavior of the higher authorities. While they are giving some kind of order or speaking somebody else, they don't have eye to eye contact. They just look into side by people and have their eye to eye contact. By the way, he is talking to somebody else or scolding somebody else or giving direction to somebody else, but the eye contact with somebody else, or he wants like certain affirmation from the people standing behind. What kind of linguistic is working there?
Wonderful. I'm writing something, Professor. Professor Deepak, you can research more about it. This is called as representational system. Representational system. You can just browse about it. What it tells that human being has got primarily 4 representational system. One is called visual, second auditory, third kinesthetic, 4 is auditory digital. Generally, people who are visual, their eye contact goes up. They look straight eye to eye. People who are auditory, sometimes their eye contact will go to a side because they keep their ears towards the direction of sound. People who are kinesthetic, I mean, little emotion, touch, that is associated, they generally look down. They cannot talk eye to eye all the time. And people who are AD, they mostly, when they talk, they will talk left down, something like that. There is a construction. So what happens? Many of the people, and everybody is unique. If you find a person leader is visual, his voice will be candid, clear, eye will be straight. If you find the person is kinesthetic, he will generally not make eye contact. He will look here, there, and talk. And if it's auditory, you will find most of the time he will be in the telephone position, like a telephone is hold, telephone position like that. So that is how this is actually being structured, because we are wired in that way, Professor.
Even Professor, we can
Thank you,
understand in the autistic children also,
yes,
in the basic age of when the parenting is being built up, so the movements of body are quite phenomenal at that time to track and to trace. Sir, I'm Professor Kavita Thaplyal from Amity University. And in your session, it connected me so well because I'm a business communication expert. And your entire communication related to the body language and the simulation exercise, which you did right now, it was the biggest takeaway, because it reflected your vast experience and your enriched learning to it. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing such a wonderful session.
So nice of you, Professor. And good that you are working with autistics, because that is a great contribution to society. So nice of you. Thank you. Okay, friends. Thank you very much. I wish you all success in life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mangesh, for educating and for engaging. I could see that perhaps the most engaging session which has happened, and our participants has really, they have great takeaways through the session. Thank you again. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and sharing your knowledge. Thank you. So we'll having our next session right at 3 p.m. We will have with us Jayant Jayaprakash, who is popularly known as JJ Mentor. So he will be taking us through the design thinking and how the role of leadership has invented in the process called design thinking. So thank you so much. I have shared the feedback links, and yes, about attendance, need not worry, because yes, attendance of course is being tracked through multiple sources. So thank you so much once again. We'll meet you soon. Have your lunch, stretch a bit till we meet at 3 p.m. Thank you so much.